Welcome all to Bankroll Blitz right here on Pub Sports Radio. Happy Tuesday, October 17th to all of you. Thank you for watching our NFL breakdown show. My co-host Troy Torrence is at the hospital as we speak. Maybe right at this very moment, he is staring at his newborn son. His son is being born tonight, and he is not with us. And I got to pick the capper I was going to replace him with for this week. And I picked my man, Mike M., star of the Pimp Slap play of the day. Mikey, I'm very excited to cap this entire Week 7 NFL card with you, my friend. How are you?
I'm fired up, man. It's outstanding. I'm excited to be a part of Bankroll Blitz. Big shoes to fill. I know the stakes are high. They're high every week, but I got to step in and replace a guy with a database that goes back and has been doing nothing but producing cash for everybody. So I'm willing to step up to the challenge here. I've been capping this card since last night, and I feel like I'm ready. I feel like I got some really nice spots lined up here. I got some nice angles that we'll talk about here as well. You guys know the deal. We'll look at trends. I'll throw a couple player prop ideas out there, some early spots, and I'm a late is great guy here, but I made sure to sharpen the pencil. I want to make sure I give you guys the best looks I have this Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm fired up, man. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to step in and cap with you, my guy.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm very, very excited to have you here. Shout out to all the cappers in the chat. We have Hipster Jesus, Sammy Culmer, who's on the Rams -3, Eagles -1, Chargers +5.5. Eagles -1 and Chargers +5.5. I expect to be on my car. I don't think I can get the -1 anymore. I know it went down to 1 and then it's bounced back up, but I expect the Eagles and Chargers to end up on my card after our breakdowns today. Guillermo Zertucci in the house. There's Spenny, Penny Bombs, Dana, Delt, Mac, Beavers, Wine Time, Sports, Markel, J Dub, Dan Kelly. It is great to see all of you guys. Quick review of what happened last week. I went 0-3 in the Colts game. Lost $600 and still pulled out profit over the Sunday and Monday, which, I didn't think I was going to do it. But Baltimore, Tennessee, first half under 21 was a push. Baltimore, Tennessee, full game under 41.5 was a cash. I mean, the first half should have been a cash as well, but, bad beats happen. Colts +4 was a loss. Colts team total over 20.5 was a loss. Houston, money line was a casher. Raiders -3 was a fortunate casher. New England Raiders under 41.5 cash. Philadelphia, New York Jets under 41 cash. Tampa +3.5 was a mistake, but Detroit, Tampa Bay under 44 cashed. Chargers money line lost. The Vikings -3 cashed. And then I added two totals after NFL pop-up that both lost. Indiana, Jacksonville under 44 and Minnesota, Chicago over 44.5. So I went 7-6 plus 0.63 units. I'm not pleased with how it's all gone down. I've only had one losing week, but that week was a debacle. And with one losing week out of 6, I'm still just 44-39, 53% plus 0.77 units ROI, plus 0.93% average line -110. It's not enough. It is not enough. But I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys. We got Frankie Machado, Al Cervic, Aaron Gaza, Jerry Beatty, Terry Walker, Birdie. We got the squad together, ready to go. So let's get to work. But before we introduce the first game here, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is unders. Now, on week 2, everything went over.
Yeah.
Everything. And I got crushed. And I haven't been hammering as many unders as usual just because of how badly I got crushed on week 2. But right now, through 6 weeks, unders are 56, 36, and 1, hitting at 61%. And this past week, they went 12, 2, and 1, and only 4 games had 40 or more points scored in a matchup. Do you want to touch on that briefly, Mikey, what you're seeing with this amount of unders?
Yeah, so, we saw this, I've read a stat earlier today that talked about, I think that's the most unders, the most profitable under Sunday for the NFL. I want to say it said going back to 1996. And, they're not using the juice balls clearly, but interesting enough that they, they've been tweaking the rule changes to try to get the offenses in the game and try to get that scoring. Fantasy football kind of led the charge with its popularity and trying to get wide receivers and changing the way that defenders can kind of block up against those wide receivers. But if I kind of think about what happened last week, it wasn't so much the deep ball as much as it was just some bad penalties, like a lack of offensive production coupled with some pass interference penalties to be able to pick up those gains. It just looks like teams are Maybe still kind of reeling back from that one less week of preseason. They don't really seem to play in those preseason games anyways, but definitely was eye-opening. A lot of unders, the primetime unders continue to hit at a staggering rate. We saw again last night, Sunday night, of course, with that stinker between the Bills and the Giants. And I think a lot of these marquee games are just not getting the job done as well. We're seeing, teams like Kansas City's and even teams like Indianapolis that should be high flying score fest are just not getting it done. But if you look around the NFL and you see a lot of these quarterbacks, I'll pick on him. Baker Mayfield's one of those guys. Justin Fields, inconsistent at best. And then you got your horses. You got your guys like Justin Herbert that should be leading the charge with 30 plus points a week. And they're either banged up or they're just not finding a way to get it. Defenses seem to me to have read and reacted over the last 2 years of adjustments on offense that they've now figured out how to capitalize on those rule changes and play the ball that's necessary to keep guys out of the end zone.
Yeah, well put. And the market has adjusted. These totals are very low this week, And also in Troy's database, he has totals that are between 40 and 43.5 that get moved to the over, that have up to 2.5 point move to the over. We're all going under. All of them were going under. They've had 2 point moves to the over. I cashed the one with confidence because of that trend with the Eagles game. That went up to 43.5, and I was not concerned, and it was an easy under. So the markets have reacted. We see low totals. Let's get to work right now. Skydragon saying defenses these days find it hard to cover straight up with all the rules to offenses. They're daring your quarterback to drive the field and make tight red zone throws. Markel says, got to love the under. And Dan Kelly says, if they want more scoring, they wouldn't have changed when the game clock starts like they did. So here we go. Let's get to work right now and start off with the Thursday nighter, 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Jacksonville Jaguars 4-2, 2-0 on the road at the New Orleans Saints, 3-3, 1-1 at home. Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. Let's get right into the line history here for this one. From a point spread scenario, we are sitting with New Orleans as 1.5 point favorites at Pinnacle. They were 3-point favorites this morning, and it surprised me. It surprised me very much. We know that, Trevor Lawrence walked pretty comfortably to the presser after the game. I know we're dealing with a knee sprain, but it was clear there was nothing. Now in practice, he's wrapped up, but there was nothing on him. He walked pretty comfortably. Everybody was watching how he walked. It was a very easy, comfortable walk. And so I thought immediately that there's something else going on with this line. And I didn't have too much time to think about it before it moved to 1. So clearly the 3 probably should have been hammered. I know a lot of colleagues of mine who think this is one of those traps where the public is going to get destroyed with Jacksonville on the road here. But my first instinct was, how do I not bet Jacksonville at +3? I got to bet Jacksonville at +3, but I just paused. I paused for long enough that it immediately went to 1. If I had moved on Jacksonville +3, I wouldn't be nervous. I wouldn't be uncomfortable, but it was my first gut reaction. My gut isn't usually a winning gambler on a day-to-day betting situation. Futures, the gut does a great job. But this total opened up at 39, went up to 39.5, and it dropped back to 39 at 6:12 p.m. So it's right basically where it started. From a cash flow scenario, we have 62% of the tickets and 75% of the cash on the Saints. And from a total scenario, 88% of the tickets and 93% cash on the under. Here we go. Jaguars come in off their third straight win, an impressive 37-20 victory at home over the Colts. They were outgained 354-233 in the win. We're going to talk about that a few times throughout this card. Teams that were badly outgained but won comfortably. Trevor Lawrence was 20 of 30 for 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. The MRI showed no structural damage. He's listed as day-to-day, and he's fully expected to make the start. C.J. Beathard is the backup. He hasn't started a game since 2020. 12 NFL starts in his career, but I do not expect him under center unless there's a further injury during the game. Christian Kirk led receivers with 3 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. Etienne ran 18 times for 55 yards, 2 touchdowns, caught 3 passes for 28 yards. They are winning football games, but this offense is playing mediocre. They ranked 20th in points per play. They were 2 for 3 in the red zone against the Colts, and the defense was strong throughout. They put pressure on Gardner Minshew. They sacked him 3 times. They hit him 8 times. They intercepted him 3 times. Rayshon Jenkins, Andre Sisco, and Darius Williams got those picks. Jacksonville now leads the NFL with 15 takeaways. Right guard Brandon Scherf left in the second quarter with an ankle injury. Peterson said he's feeling better. They need Scherf in the lineup badly with Walker Little out with an MCL sprain. Their starting quarterback, Tyson Campbell, left with a hamstring issue, and Doug Peterson confirmed yesterday that it is very unlikely that he will be playing. So they're going to be missing Tyson Campbell. They're going to be missing Walker Little, who's out with the MCL sprain, and they're possibly missing Scherf. Saints come in off a 2013 loss at Houston. They lost. They only put up They lost and only put up 13 points despite outgaining the Texans 430 to 297. Derek Carr was 32 for 50 for 353 yards, a touchdown and a pick. It's hard to imagine that they could only put up 13 points in that situation. Olave caught 7 for 96, big bounce back spot for him. Rashid Shaheed caught 2 passes for 85 yards and a touchdown. Kamara ran 19 times for 68 yards, caught 7 for 36. They were 0 for 3 in the red zone. They're now 28th in the league, converting red zone opportunities at 36.84%. That's a gift for under bettors. The defense played well. They didn't get much pressure on Stroud, but they finished with 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. Zach Braun had an interception, but then promptly fumbled it back to the Texans. The Saints have allowed 20 or fewer points in 5 of their 6 games. They're 5th in total yards allowed. They're 2nd in opponent completion percentage, and that's where their secondary shines. Kicker Blake Groupie missed 2 field goals, and the Saints are dealing with issues on their offensive line. So James Hurst injured an ankle in the second quarter. He left the field on crutches and in a walking boot. Ryan Ramczyk, the right tackle, left in the fourth quarter. He's in concussion protocol, so he won't be able to play. So when the game ended, Trevor Penning was at left tackle, and Cesar Ruiz, who has never played tackle at the NFL level, was at right tackle. So rookie Nick Saldiveri, who played 2 offensive snaps in his career, was in Ruiz's usual spot at right guard. So they have offensive line depth, but it's being tested. But you have Hurts and you have Ramczyk. You have Landon Young, who's the swing tackle. He's missed the last 2 games with a hip injury. And then Andrews Pete was active for Sunday's game but didn't play. Dennis Allen said that Pete was only available as a last resort after he injured his groin in practice. So if both of these offensive lines are hurting, I want the under. I want to bet the under. I want to be on the under if these offenses aren't going to have time to move. I don't know if 39 is too low. I think we can get underneath it. I think any Saints game, we can get underneath 39.
Yeah.
Take it away, Mike. The floor is yours. Jaguars, Saints, Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana, our Thursday night, and you will be hosting our live stream right here on Pub Sports Radio for this game. Take it away.
We're going to have another barn burner here with this Jacksonville, New Orleans Saints total spot. And, I think it's going to be an opportunity for that under on a live situation here. I'm super nervous about where that total sits today. Here's a couple of things that I was looking at. First of all, the injury with Trevor Lawrence, right? It's a knee injury or a knee sprain, I guess is what they're calling it, right? A lot of guys play through it. It's a low performance impact type of injury. The short rest obviously isn't an ideal situation for Trevor Lawrence. And, as I started thinking about game script for this game, where's the one effectiveness that they've really had on offense, the consistent, especially the last couple of weeks, is ATN. He's been a beast, man. He's been putting up multiple touchdown games. He's the odds-on favorite from a touchdown perspective this week. You can get him at plus 115. It's all the way down to even money at some spots out there. And where have the Saints been missing? Well, Kamara hasn't been doing his job. Olave is the big guy that's coming back or starting to work his way back into consistency from some of his banged up issues that he had in the early part of the season. But the big difference I noticed with Jacksonville in the first couple games of the season, you kind of saw, look right back to week 1. Who were they kind of forced feeding the ball to? They were forcing it to Calvin Ridley. He was making some great plays downfield. He was really explosive and really fast. But as they've settled in with the offensive coordinator and kind of getting used to the pieces that they have on the chessboard, they've been able to come out there and battle. Now, as far as how I see this game and some numbers that I was looking at here, you're right on when you talk about these New Orleans totals. We've seen them average 34 points this season. They've got a 31, they've got a 37, 2 35s, a 34, and a 33 total altogether. Jacksonville, on their side of the ball, they've got 3 against the spread covers in a row. New Orleans, 1-3 in their last 4. Who did they lose to? They lost to Green Bay. They lost to Tampa Bay. and they lost to Houston. That Houston game, I'll give them kind of the badge there because, CJ Stroud, his first interception spot there. They came and ready D'd up and to get it done. But the stat that kind of jumps off the page at me is the DVOA. Has a lot to do with the defensive value against the average. And really that goes across the NFL. So a measurement that they use in this thing is down in distance every play, and then they compare it to the league average. You've got Jacksonville, and how I think this game is going to kind of come down to a defensive battle. Jacksonville ranks 11th in the DVOA. New Orleans ranks 4th in DVOA. Those are some big factors when you start looking at this total and why I think it correlates to that line movement. Now, when you look at Thursday night footballs, totals that are below 42 are 30 and 18 to the under going back to 2010. Also 17-4 if it falls exactly at 40. So we'll keep our eyes on where that number kind of settles to. I know it's below that kind of threshold right now. Another factor that I looked at with this game, when it comes to Indianapolis, that Jacksonville Indy game, that was a big division rivalry spot. Well, how do teams perform when they're off a division rivalry and they've got short rest, which this Thursday night football model fits? They're 6-4 against the spread, but 2-9 to the under, covering by almost a touchdown on that under. So even though we're low on that number, it still feels like it's an opportunity to be. Now, home teams, when they have short rest, it's a Monday or Thursday game, are 7-14 against the spread, but again, 4-20 to the under. The spot that jumped out to me, though, is primetime non-divisional favorites. Primetime non-divisional favorites, 58-24 straight up, covering by about 6 points. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. The spots that I ultimately arrived at in this thing here were that first half under 20. Why? Because I think from a banged-up offense perspective, you talked about the offensive lines. Can they get down there and put 3 touchdowns up in that first half? I really don't think so. So I went to that first half under 20. The other side that I'm looking at here is the New Orleans Saints under 20.5. Their offense really just not getting it done. They're coming off of a situation where, again, battle with Houston, didn't get the points on the board the way they wanted to. They ultimately came up short. But I don't think we see 3 touchdowns out of New Orleans. And what we've noticed with these Thursday night games, these teams don't want to play Thursday. So that translates to how they perform, especially in that second half. So while I'm on the first half under 20, I'm going to look to live bet that thing as well when it comes to that second half. So the New Orleans team total under 20.5 for me, the under in the first half of 20. Why 20? Because we're seeing that number drop so low that I don't want to try to jump in here at this point where we're 2 points down off the original total. For me, I felt like getting that first half under 20, we're going to see a tightly contested game where I think it's going to be between the 40s. We're not going to see a lot of offense being generated, at least early on. When you look at this thing here, the Jaguars, their third down conversion rate, third and short going back to week 17 of last year, they're tied for third worst. That means they're not generating first downs when they're in that third and short position that you're going to need to have success and production with when it comes to your quarterback dealing with a knee sprain. The Saints defense has allowed a conversion rate of 48% on third and short. That ranks them second best in the NFL. It's going to keep that Jaguars ball in between those 40s, in my opinion. And I think that correlates to that first half production and being on that under. When you look at the other side of the ball in the Saints, they're scoring 10.7 points per game at home going back to 2017, week 17 of last year. That's the absolute worst in the NFL. So that being said, the Jaguars have only allowed 4 points a game on the road going back to last season, which is third best in the NFL. This is just a situation where it's going to be a tight scrum. There's going to probably be a lot of chippiness. You're going to probably see a lot of BS penalties towards the end of the game that try to lead to one side or the other. If I was going to lean to a side, and I give you a lean right now, I would say I would take the Saints straight up on the money line. Screw that minus 1 point, and I certainly like those unders.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I want the Saints, and I think I end up moving on them. I'd prefer not to double up on this spot, but Sky Dragon saying London home at NOLA on a short week with NOLA off a loss, as the whole situation sets up for NOLA. I agree. I think that I'm going to move not only on the Saints, but on the full game under as well. I know that, you could say, well, that correlates to the Jaguars team total under. I'd rather just take both teams to be poor here. At Pinnacle, the lines are not very good. Can you beat these lines for your action as we're going to record everything? You have the first half under 20 at Pinnacle is minus 122, and the Saints team total under 20.5 is minus 118.
The minus 118's better number than I can see right now.
Okay.
And the under 20 is minus 105 for me.
Okay, what book?
Caesars.
Okay, perfect. You got it. First half under 20 minus 105. Saints team total under 20.5 minus 118. That's probably a thing you should bet right now. It's 19.5 at minus 105 at Pinnacle. I'm going to be on the under, and I think I've talked myself into a move on the Saints.
One last component here to this game, and then we don't need to beat this thing up any longer, is, I've talked to you guys before about a certain book that has the best numbers out there and the correlation to just being losses. The best number for the Jacksonville Jaguars money line falls under that book at plus 102 right now. Also, when you look at the spread, they're offering a plus 1.5 is the best number out there as well. So that kind of falls into that. I haven't tried, we track so much. It's hard to track everything, but from a gut perspective, every time I see that book has the best numbers, I try to stay away from those things. So I see a Bet Rivers has the money line at minus 114 right now for New Orleans Saints. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm gonna put that down as a lean, and then maybe when we circle back at the end here, I might jump on that thing depending on the action we have.
I expect to bet both of these this evening. I at this point, I don't think there's any reason to stay off moving on the Saints right away now that there's been that move back here. So that's my plan. Will be the Saints. I will decide between the -1 and the money line, and I will be on the full game under. And Mikey is on the first half under 20, and the Saints team total under 20.5. And his live bet stream will be right here on Pub Sports Radio starting at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday evening. All right, let's move on to Sunday, October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern. We have the Las Vegas Raiders 3-3, 1-2 on the road at the Chicago Bears, 1-5, 0-3 at home, Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. 51 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 10 miles per hour. Let's get into the line history here for this one. We have, pull this up right here, and we have the Bears right now at +3 at minus 107. This opened up at minus 106, so we really had no movement here on the side since Pinnacle dropped this spot. Then from a total perspective, we are sitting at a 37.5, and there's been no movement there. Opened up at minus 108 to the under. It's still right there, so very little movement. Let's get over to the cash flow on this spot here, and we have 82% of the tickets and 97% of the cash on the under. And from a spread perspective, 18% of the tickets and 43% of the cash on the Chicago Bears. The Raiders come in off their second straight win, 21-17 at home over the Patriots, and Jimmy G suffered a back injury in the second quarter. He was sent to the hospital. Josh McDaniels said that Garoppolo dodged a big bullet. His status is unclear, but we don't expect him to be available on Sunday. So up until that injury, Garoppolo was 14-22 for 162 yards and a touchdown to Jacoby Myers and a pick. In relief, Brian Hoyer came in. He was 6 of 10 for 102 yards. Despite Hoyer coming in to replace Jimmy G, as Aiden O'Connell was not dressed for this one, I shouldn't say we all. There's an expectation that if someone was going to start other than Garoppolo, that it would be Aiden O'Connell over Hoyer. We don't know if that's going to come to fruition, but that's the expectation, is that Aiden O'Connell will be the starting quarterback. Michael Meyer caught 5 passes for 75 yards. Jacoby Myers caught 5 for 51 and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs ran 25 for 77 yards and caught 2 passes for 16 yards. He's been a very mediocre after signing the 1-year contract. He needs to show off and show out to be able to get paid. The Raiders continue to struggle in the red zone. They're 1 for 6 versus the Patriots. Patriots are quite good in the red zone, both offensively and defensively. But the Raiders are ranked 25th in converting red zone opportunities, 40.91%. The defense looks strong versus the Patriots' weak offense. They finished with 4 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. They closed the game out with that Max Crosby, Bilal Nichols safety. Trayvon Morgan had an interception, but they allowed the Patriots to go 2 for 2 in the red zone. Excuse me. Their red zone defense currently ranked 29th in the league. Let me just have a sip of water here. Sorry.
Gets me choked up just thinking about it too.
The red zone. Actually, why don't you take over for a sec, Mike?
Yeah. So I think if I could paraphrase for Jimmy, they stink in the red zone, and collectively the Bears not much better. Although the Bears did have a flash of brilliance, right? So if you kind of look at the trials and tribulations or the turmoil of Justin Fields' season here, beat down at Tampa Bay. smacked in the mouth at Kansas City. And that was kind of a spot for me where I was pretty vocal about his lack of character, where he was blaming his coaches for being overcoached. He's even got Mahomes saying, stick to your ground and, make your thing. Well, what he did after that, though, is he came back and he played a competitive game with some offense by facing Denver Broncos, but it was the Denver Broncos. Comes back against the Commanders and had a sound victory, a 40-20 victory. The Bears were my pick last week. I was looking at the Bears against the Vikings. I'm not a Vikings fan, and we'll talk more about that shortly. But then Fields got hurt, and now he's got this thumb issue that's kind of creeping out there and lingering. So, from a thumb perspective, kind of a big deal. And I think what they're deciding on right now is it going to be a surgery factor or not? And that's going to obviously determine the length of the potential injury that he has out there. That being said, though, Bears are decimated by injuries across the board right now. What they got? Khalil Herbert's out of the game. Their offensive line's got issues galore. Their defense has got issues. Their Cole Kmet, their tight end, their offensive line. I don't know what's going to happen with the Chicago Bears team. What they're going to have to do is if Fields goes down, they're going to have to sign somebody in this free agency or maybe with this trade deadline pending, make a move for somebody's backup, because it ain't cutting it right now. And, they had 2 flashes of brilliance with Justin Fields. He led the league in offensive performance, production and yards in the field, touchdown catches, rushing yards from the entire NFL, not just at the quarterback position as well. But, certainly a lot of uncertainty there on that Bears side of the ball. And, and then you look at the Raiders side of things and this Garoppolo factor, who's going to lead the charge for him? And you kind of nailed that when you talked a little bit about the Hoyer O'Connell type of situation.
Yeah, and I do expect it to be O'Connell, and I agree with Sky Dragon saying, the difference between Jimmy G and O'Connell is minimal. When we go back to where I was going, the red zone defense right now for the Raiders is 29th in the league. They're allowing touchdowns on 70% of drives in the red zone. Daniel Carlson continues to kick very well, 4-4. You can expect field goals in this one. Safety Roderick Teamer injured his hamstring. At this point, we don't know the extent of it. The Raiders have allowed 17 or fewer points in 3 of their games. They've only allowed over 24 once. And the Raiders have failed to cover the spread in their last 9 games as road favorites. This goes back a while. Mm-hmm. The Bears come in off a 19-13 loss at home to the Vikings, as you talked about. The game overshadowed by Justin Fields' thumb injury. They've now lost 10 straight home games. The dislocated thumb, he has the issue with grip strength. I do not expect him to be under center. So Tyson Bagent, out of Division II Shepherd University, he was 10 of 14 for 83 yards and his first NFL touchdown. It was a quarterback sneak. He was strip sacked on the 3rd play from scrimmage. That hurt. And he also threw a pick where he underthrew DJ Moore. But this guy is loved by the group in the room. He looked very good in preseason. He went from number 4 on the depth chart to becoming the backup. He instilled so much confidence in the Bears' brain trust that they cut PJ Walker despite giving him $2 million guaranteed. That's a big deal. And you talked about the 3 running backs on the depth chart injured. Donta Foreman came in and looked pretty good, ran 15 times for 65 yards. The defense had a strong game. They held the Vikes to just 12 first downs and 2 of 13 on 3rd down. But they lose their right guard, Nate Davis, to a high ankle sprain. He's week to week. Eddie Jackson, this secondary so beaten up. Eddie Jackson aggravated his injured foot in the first quarter. But this is important. Eddie Jackson, Eberflus said that he could have played an emergency situation. So Eberflus thinks that he's going to line up this week, and they need him badly in the secondary. Rookie corner Terrell Smith missed the last game due to an illness, and it turns out it's mono. So he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So this group just keeps getting devastated. I agree with the idea that how do you really scorecast? How do you really game script if you don't know who is going to be at quarterback? But if I had to bet on it, I would bet it'd be Aiden O'Connell going up against Bagent and cap it accordingly. And nothing appeals to me. And I think that both quarterbacks can move the ball okay against these defenses. I mean, I think the Raiders defense is a little stronger, than the Bears defense, but nothing is appealing to me in this game at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I kind of echo your sentiment there. Couple things that jumped out to me though, particularly was again, and we talked about this on the hop of the show, the unders in the NFL. And last week I kind of looked at the card and I was like, boy, it feels like there's going to be a lot of unders. And that kind of messed with my head a little bit. As I looked at this card again, I thought the same thing. Boy, there's going to be a lot of unders. The Vegas Raiders are 1-5 to the under this season. Their only over was the explosion of the Bills offense that took place that game where, that other than that, it should have been an under spot. But kind of where I'm leaning on this game, and I'll talk to you a little bit more in detail about it here, is the Jacobs run game. Like, what's the one consistent that they have, or the constant on a team with all this flux right now? It's the fact that Josh Jacobs is leading the NFL in total opportunities from the running back position. Last week, he had 30 total targets or opportunities. That's combining both his pass receiving attempts as well as his rushing attempts. And he's leading the NFL on average with 24 targets. So, that kind of correlates back to that under for me when it comes to this number. We're seeing the two games that Justin Fields had that explosion of offense, went over a 44.5 comfortably and over the 47 by a couple of points as well. But with this flux in the quarterback situation on that Bears side, it just leads me back to who's going to put the ball in the end zone for those guys. If I think about this game script, it's give the ball to Josh Jacobs. I love Josh Jacobs' rushing attempts prop. I'm not so sure if I'll get there on his yards. I probably will. I don't have some of these props available to me yet, as they're still kind of working through finalizing lineups, but I would lean to that Jacobs, rushing attempt prop. And another factor that jumped off the page at me, and ultimately where I'm going to jump in on this game, you talked a lot about these quarterbacks and kind of who they are and where they came from. And, Tyson, I guess if we're looking at this thing here, and I was going to kind of break down these quarterbacks, Tyson Bagent is the guy. I think I said that last name right. But who's behind him? It's Nathan Pick Six Peterman rather. So that's not the guy you want to have, when it comes to your backup. They're going to be all on this guy, or this team's going to crumble like a house of cards in the wind. On the other side of things, with Brian Hoyer, with the experience in the McDaniel system, I think he's his guy. And you're talking Aiden O'Connell. I could see him making the leapfrog situation, but if it doesn't go Aiden O'Connell's way, it makes a lot of sense to start him when you kind of have that Tyson versus Aiden battle. You get the guy the comfort and confidence to go out there and see what he can do. If he can't and he gets the hook in the second half, it's a Brian Hoyer spot. So, for me, that jumps off the page pretty substantially when it comes to the depth and the I don't want to say quality, but the consistent and the ability with game experience is probably the word I'm looking for when it comes to the backups. The other thing here, we talked about San Francisco, and we'll talk more about that situation and what happens after teams play San Francisco. Guess who's another one that jumps off the page? The New England Patriots. After teams play the Patriots when they're a favorite, they're 13-2 straight up. They're only 7-6-2 against the spread, but they're averaging 150 rushing yards. So that kind of goes back to my thoughts when we look at this Josh Jacobs situation and saying, we're going to pound this ball. They're going to try to get that performance moving down the field. The guy's been consistent. He's showing that they have no qualm about going back to him after the injury took place a couple weeks ago, and they dished the ball off a ton when O'Connell came in. They saw what they had in Jacobs, and I think they go back to that here as well. I am going to take the Vegas Raiders here. I'm going to take them. I got a -3, and it's -110 for me at that -3. Are they a 6-point better team? And why do I say 6? Because we factor in the 3 for home field, right? Are they you give the Bears 3, and now you're giving the Raiders a -3. So you're looking at really the Raiders being a 6-point better team. Without Justin Fields, without Herbert, without Cole Kmet, I just don't know who's going to get the ball. And you got DJ Moore that they're underthrowing. Yeah, he got 40 yards total in that game, went after Justin Fields came out of the game. But I just don't see any game plan that's going to show the Bears are going to be able to stick in this game. So I like that money line a ton. That might make some parlays for me as we get closer to Sunday. But I'm going to lock down the -3, -110 for the Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I think that it does make sense. And, with the injuries to the running game, I mean, D'Onta Foreman wasn't that big of a drop from the, whether it be, I mean, maybe a little bit of a drop from Khalil Herbert, but Rashawn Johnson, not that big of a drop. But yeah, I don't want Hoyer. If I'm on the Raiders, I want O'Connell out there. I think that there's a higher upside. I'm interested. Spenny says Rashawn should be back from his concussion. And I tried to get that information right now, but could not get it. Today. So at this point, there's no move for me, but I guess I do have interest in the Raiders.
I just can't go with this. The Bears are anemic at best with Justin Fields in there. You still kind of have that coin flip of what they're going to do with this game. And, it's not an exciting game for me, but the Bears have burned me several times. And now you're going to take out, arguably their best pieces in the game. I just don't see where they get the job done. And, the questions and the concern about Justin Fields, are we going to see Aiden O'Connell, not Aiden O'Connell, this Tyson guy step in and be the second coming? I just don't think so. And 3 points, the field goal spot. Do I think this game comes within that number? No. The other thing that I kind of correlate with this here is I look at the team totals. I see the Raiders team totals 20.5, and I see the Bears team totals 16.5. Simple math. It's a 4-point differential on a 3-point game. If it comes down to a field goal and I push it, then I push it. But I just think the Raiders are going to have that more confidence and comfort with their running game to be able to generate the offense they need to get this win. I don't think it's going to be a barn burner by any stretch. The total is just disgusting with how it's dropped, right? I mean, it's down 9 points from the original look ahead numbers. And it kind of goes back to what we're seeing out of these two offenses. But I like that Raider spot at -3. I'm going to take that Raider spot -3. I'm not going to say I like it. I'm going to take it at -3. That's probably the better way to say it.
I like it. Well, let's roll on to the next spot on our board. Cleveland Browns 3-2, 0-1 on the road at the Indianapolis Colts 3-3, 1-2 at home, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. You can imagine that our guy Troy, who's been all in on the Browns throughout the season, believes in them here. And he did send me this message from the hospital. Browns -2 and Colts team total under. His note alongside it said Minshew is the worst PFF rating in the league under pressure. 50% worse than the second on the list. Complete outlier. Colts will not take any risks. The game will likely turn into a battle for field position. My only issue there is, again, do you want to buy the Browns high? And it's a real issue. It's just a real issue that will likely, I try not, unless I really have conviction, to move on spots like this. But maybe we'll find that conviction with this breakdown. So let's get into it right now. We'll start with the spread. We talk about, look ahead spots. We talked about the 46.5. That was a look ahead with the total in the last game. We can talk about the look ahead spots in some of these games here. I tried just to focus on Pinnacle, but here, it was 3. We're dealing with a 2 right now. -2 opened up at -106. It's now -2 at -103. So we've had 3 cents of movement towards the Colts, who looked awful last week. From a total scenario, this is sitting at 39, and it's moved 5 cents towards the under. And unders do scare me. They scare me very much with Minshew at quarterback. Let's take a look at the cash, just because of pick sixes as well. Right. He's a feast or famine kind of a quarterback. 82% of the tickets, 89% of the cash on the Cleveland Browns on the spread. And from a total scenario, we have 99% of the tickets on the under. They've not given us any information on the cash. Sky Dragon says, I bet Cleveland -3. And the under 39 says, don't love it, hate the spot. There were tiny bets. Slatsy says Browns are 3-13 straight up after a win since 2021. Brady says Browns coming off winning as a 10-point dog. Troy can be the Browns god. Love them. It is the Colts or nothing as of right now. It is nothing for me. Dan Kelly says watching Browns San Francisco game was a perfect example of taking advantage of live betting. When Debo went down, I got on Cleveland. Then when McCaffrey went down, I doubled down 2 units. Easy win. DC Capra on Cleveland -1.5. And the idea that I don't want to buy high will probably keep me off of this game. And I do think the Colts, even though they just 1-2 at home, I do think there is a big advantage at Lucas Oil. Browns coming off a big win at home, 19-17 over the previously unbeaten 49ers. PJ Walker started due to Deshaun Watson's shoulder injury. He was 18-34 for 192 yards and 2 picks. Amari Cooper caught 4 for 108. Jerome Ford ran 17 times for 84 yards, caught 2 passes for 7 yards, and Kareem Hunt ran 12 times for 47 yards and a touchdown. He caught 3 passes for 24 yards. That is an actual point of emphasis here, because he looked terrible when he came back to the Browns, not playing the first few games of the year. Jerome Ford looked good. Kareem Hunt looked much better. Their defense shut down the vaunted 49er offense. They held the Niners to 3 of 12 on third down, just 215 total yards. 3 sacks, 6 quarterback hits. They held Purdy to 125 yards through the air. Emerson had a pick. Deshaun Watson remains week to week. I mean, it's unclear when he'll be back. Anthony Walker, linebacker, is in concussion protocol, and the Browns defense right now, just the clear number 1 DVOA in the league. Colts come in off an ugly 37-20 loss at Jacksonville. They turned the ball over 4 times in the loss. They outgained the Jags 354 to 233. It didn't matter. Minshew was 33 for 55 for 329 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 costly interceptions. Also a fumble. Pittman Jr. caught 9 for 109. Tight end Kylan Granson caught 3 for 67 yards. He entered concussion protocol this morning. So he was not on any notes from the game. This happened this morning that he went into concussion protocol. So if you enter on Tuesday, you're not playing on Sunday. But the Colts have a lot of depth at tight end. They have Drew Ogletree and Mo Alley Cox. Mo Alley Cox was dealing with an injury. He did get into, I think, about 10% of the snaps yesterday, and we know what he's capable of. Wide receiver Alec Pierce hurt his shoulder in the fourth quarter. He had a big wrap on his shoulder on the sideline once he checked out of the game. We haven't gotten an update on him. But if he's not there, it's Pittman, Downs, McKenzie, and Rogers. The run game did very little. Jonathan Taylor's second game back, he ran 8 times for 19 yards. He did catch 5 for 46, but the Colts need to get him going. They need to have a two-headed monster on their hands because Zach Moss looks great. Zach Moss ran 7 times for 21 yards and a touchdown. He caught 6 passes for 38 yards. They're number 14 in offensive DVOA and number 17 in defensive DVOA. That's what you get from this team. This is a real mediocre squad. I was very surprised that Shaquille Leonard and Kwity Paye returned to the defense and they get slaughtered. Who do we blame for that? It's pretty simple. We blame Minshew. I mean, he's the reason why they got lit up. But I was still surprised that Shaq and Kwity didn't really boost that defense. Maybe it's because the Jaguars' offense is so much better than the Titans' offense, and that's a valid, argument because we didn't see Shaq or Kwity against the Titans. They finished with 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. Juju Brents had a pick. They allowed the Jags to go 2 of 3 in the red zone. This Colts red zone defense is not being good this year. They're currently ranked 21st. They allowed touchdowns 57.89% of the time. They're a very, very mediocre squad going up against the number 1 DVOA defense in the league. But I'm still concerned about buying high with the Browns. Take it away for us here, Mikey. Lucas Oil, Browns, Colts.
Would you steal my DVOA stat? I was going to just drop that thing to open this puppy up, but that's okay. I ran this thing and expected to be in the situation where we're not going to see Watson. It's kind of trending for maybe that week 8 return, not week 7. And, the rumor on the street, and it looks like it's going to be official here is, we're not going to see Anthony Richardson come back this year, which is a shame because I had him as the opportunity for offensive rookie of the year. And I guess I'm going to probably, I won't tear that ticket up. I'll hang on to it just in case. But, that being said, obviously Gardner Minshew last week, he had 3 picks. He had a strip sack on top of that as well. Not a lot to like there, but you mentioned this running game and Jonathan Taylor is getting more involved in this situation. He was on the field for, or part of the offense for 40% of the drives last game. And Zach Moss has been nothing short of spectacular in the absence of Jonathan Taylor. So that 1-2 punch with Gardner's capabilities or his previous experience to me kind of makes my eyes pop a little bit here. Another thought that I said, or when I was looking at this game, first and foremost, we talked about the after San Francisco numbers a couple minutes back. Their teams after San Francisco are 3-9 straight up. They're 5-15 against the spread. The under is a big factor in there as well. 8-13 to the under. Also, Stefanski, when the total's less than 44 as a coach, he's 13-6 to the under. But the number that jumped out to me was the game after a quarterback throws 2 or more interceptions. When the team's averaging less than 2 interceptions over their season, and it's kind of that bad spot or that scrub spot where in this case, the Minshew factor came in and he kind of puked it up at the end of the game. What do they do that next game? They're 54-40 straight up. They're 59-31 against the spread. The under is also a factor. Makes sense. You want to protect that ball. You don't want to do anything stupid or take unnecessary chances where you're trying to reinstill confidence in your quarterback. But what kind of fell off the page to me here is the teaser factor. So for this Colts process, in that turnover margin that I just broke down, when they've had 2 or more turnovers that previous game and not averaging more than 2 on the season, that teaser factor goes to 75-17 when you add 6 points to it. So that's going to be one of the legs for me of a teaser. I haven't gotten the other side yet here as we continue to break down the card. I will find it and lock it down. But for me, the 75-17 number for the Colts, getting them to 8 points, makes a lot of sense. From a overall game plan perspective, We might even be able to get that number a little bit higher, but around that 8 and catching them over a touchdown. You said it earlier with the Bears, when they get into the red zone, what do? Well, first of all, they don't get in the red zone, or the Bears, I'm sorry, the Browns. The Browns don't get into the red zone very often. 7% of their offensive plays in the season have been in the red zone. 7.0, not 70, not 17, 7. That's tied for worst in the NFL. The Colts, for that matter, they're one of the best teams in the NFL to keeping their opponents out of the red zone. They tied for 6th in the NFL from a best in keeping teams out of the red zone. Browns are going to have a tough time scoring. It looks like an under spot for me in that game. But again, the first leg of a teaser, we'll see what we can lock in for that second leg.
First leg of a teaser for Mikey. Get this set up for you. So we'll see what he adds to it. And at this point, obviously, we have a bias from what we saw last week, and what we saw last week would make you want to immediately bet the Browns. It also make you want to immediately bet the Jags, and I'm not going to do that. I've been in this for too long to make those decisions. But
and real quick, I'll touch on it. You talked about it too, and what scares me about this total is the turnover capabilities. The Browns have turned the ball over 14 times going back to week 17 of last season. That's tied for 7th most in the NFL. The Colts force a lot of turnovers. They're 12 turnovers since week 17, ties them for 10th most in the NFL. And we've seen that Browns, after what they did last week and how they kind of ate up that San Francisco offense, capable of turning the ball over. So if we get a bunch of short field spots, that's going to burn that over pretty quickly. Or that under pretty quickly. So I originally thought about that teaser between, the Colts and the under, but we'll hold out and see what it looks like down the road.
All right, well, let's roll on then for us. We move on to 1 p.m. Eastern, Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Buffalo Bills 4-2, 1-1 on the road. At the New England Patriots 1-5, 0-3 at home. 57 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 13 miles per hour. Take a look at the line history here for this one. We have the Bills at -8.5, sitting at -8.5. That's where it opened. There's been very little movement on the side. From a total look, we have it sitting at 41. This opened up right at 41, so we've had no move on either side or total. And when we look at the cash for Bills Patriots, you have 80% of the tickets and 96% of the cash on the under. It's not moving. And from a spread perspective, 59% of the tickets and 70% of cash on the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo comes in off a very underwhelming 14-9 victory at home over the Giants. So that's back-to-back very underwhelming performances from the Bills. They were shut out in the first half for the first time since 2019. Josh Allen, 19 of 30 for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Stephon Diggs caught 10 for 100. The rest of the team caught 9 passes for 69 yards. The running game was strong. I haven't said that very often about the Bills. Cook ran 14 times for 71 yards. Latavius Murray added 12 carries for 45 yards. The defense held down the Giants' offense that was starting Tyrod Taylor. But the Giants were able to move the ball. They went 10 of 19 on third down. The issue was they were completely stopped in the red zone, going 0 for 5. The Bills are now 4th in the league, holding opponents to TDs on just 35% of their drives. I'm really interested to see what that's going to look like against better teams. That won't be able to find that out this week, but without Milano, I'm very interested if that red zone defense can still hold up. It's the second week in a row opponents have looked really good on third down against the Bills. Last week, the Jaguars went 10 of 18 on third down. That's really important to keep Allen off the field. So, it was important for the defense to get some confidence without Matt Milano. They had 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. Damian Harris suffered a neck injury. He's in concussion protocol. Dalton Kincaid missed Sunday's game. He's still in concussion protocol. And Dane Jackson missed Sunday's game with a foot injury. He's improving, but he remains day-to-day. Patriots coming off their third straight loss, 21-17 at the Raiders. At least they ended that 79-point scoring streak by their opponents. Jeez. It's just horrific. This is the first time Belichick has started the season 1-5 with the Patriots. The Patriots have failed to cover the spread in their last 9 games as dogs. And this is starting to be a trend here. They can't cover as dogs, and they should have covered. I know it broke a lot of people's hearts, that safety. It didn't break mine. I was very, very fortunate. I'd counted it as a loss, basically. Mac Jones looked a little better, but he didn't look good. 24-33, 20 yards, 1 pick. The interception was awful, though. It's one thing to have a pick, bounces off your receiver's hand, someone grabs it, but this one was so awful. It had to sink the spirits of the team. Down 10-3, driving in the Raiders' territory. He gets out of the pocket. He's moving towards the sideline. He throws back across his body, and it was the most important turning point up until the end of the game. But for the Raiders, Kendrick Bourne caught 10 for 89. No one else caught more than 28 yards. Ramondre Stevenson ran 10 for 46, caught 5 for 24. Zeke ran 7 for 34. I don't know why they don't just pound the rock more. The defense couldn't get enough pressure on Hoyer once he replaced Jimmy G. 0 sacks and 3 quarterback hits. They allowed a weak Raider offense to go 8 for 16 on third down. Now, they did hold the Raiders to just 1 of 6 in the red zone. And that's where the Patriots are a little tricky. They're 7th in the league, allowing touchdowns on 45% of red zone opportunities against. It's amazing how bad the Patriots are and how good they are in the red zone. They went 2 of 2 in the red zone offensively. They're 3rd in the league. They're converting 70% of their red zone opportunities, but they just don't get there enough. Defensive end Keon White's in concussion protocol, and their guard Michael Owenu, he entered the game, but he did not take he dressed for the game. He was listed as questionable, but he did not take the field. He just sat there on the sideline, so we're not sure if he's capable of going even this week. They need the help on the offensive line. Take it away for us here, Mikey. Bills, Patriots, and Foxborough.
Stakes are high for me in this game. I made a preseason proclamation, and right around now is the Bill Belichick gets his ass tossed out of town spot here. So I predicted it would be between the Bill. Well, first and foremost, I said he's going to get fired. And then second, I gave a week to it, and I said it was between the Bills beatdown and then the Dolphins coming in next week, right, or the next game that they have. So I feel like we're here. We're seeing a lot of heat out there. He kind of told Mac Jones, got to restart. You got to refresh yourself. You got to get back to the get-go last week. And even though he refreshed and restarted himself, he wasn't able to get the job done. So, 4 straight covers in a row against the New England Patriots are those Buffalo Bills in the Josh Allen era. They're whooping them by 12. They're finding a way to get the job done. You talked about New England's lack of success against the spread. They're also not successful in scoring. They're 0-6. They haven't gone over once this season. Buffalo on the road as a favorite with a total that's greater than 41 is 10-0 to the under. I'm sorry, with a total that is 41. They're 10-0 to the under. Right now we're at 41.5, so we'll keep our eyes on that game. When it's that situation, I won't trigger. I won't try to take advantage of it saying, oh, well, it's only a half a point. I'm not going to jump in and try to trigger something that's not there. So I'm going to keep my eyes on that 41 as we get closer to game time. The big injury last week for the Bills, Damian Harris, but kind of a little silent but deadly type of injury here when it comes to Josh Allen. And everyone's been talking about what's wrong. They don't quite look right. He's got that mild AC sprain, and he's had that mild AC sprain. That was a factor that hurt him at the end of last season when they got to the playoffs. We saw his effectiveness and production go down. He's a powerful arm. He's got a powerful arm. The arm strength is where, it should be a factor. It's going to hurt on the power throws or the deep balls down the field for like a Diggs guy when he's stretching down, or Gabe Davis was a big threat target out there. And we've seen the last couple of weeks, Gabe Davis hasn't been able to get the job done. Now, Derek Carr had a worse injury than that and was able to come back last week and be successful. So in terms of its overall impact to Allen, I don't know if it's just lingering or nagging, but the word on the street right now in Buffalo is that they broke down that playbook. And they're really working with the offensive coordinator to try to figure out what's working and what's not working. And, right now, there's just not a lot working. When you saw that Bills game against the Giants last week, it was ugly as ugly gets. Couple thoughts, and when I look at this number and break it down, I talked about the situation after a team plays New England. There's also a factor when a team plays the Raiders. When they play the Raiders the following week and they're an underdog, they're 1-17 to the under. So that coupled with the fact that the Bills have been covering by 12 kind of led me to 2 spots. The last number I'm going to throw out there, this is one of my favorites. When you get a situation where you look at the line and then you put the line with the total points being scored and it's less than 0, those teams, this is an NFL-wide trend that goes back to 1998. So it's a little bit of math here. You got to look at the total line from the last game. You got to look at the number of points that they scored. And when it's less than 0, teams are 23-3 straight up. They're 21-5 against the spread, covering by a margin of a touchdown. I'm on the Bills here. I'm going to take the Bills, and I got the -8.5 is where I was going with that. The secondary look that I'm looking at here is that New England team total under. It's only a lean for me right now because I got to wait and see if that total ends up being at 41. If it's at 41, then I'm going to pound away on that New England team total under. I don't expect them to be able to generate much offense. They haven't shown us an ability to generate offense and score points. The Bills have been owning New England since the Josh Allen era has begun. They're tweaking the playbook for the Bills offense to be able to find out what's working, and we've got that NFL system-wide trend. So I'm going to lay the points at -8.5. I also did a big 3-team teaser with the Bills as one of those legs as well. So I'll make sure to cover that at the end.
I immediately wanted the Bills when I looked at this, not just because fading the Patriots has been so successful financially for us all, but we talk about favorites with motivation,
right?
And the Chiefs, had no motivation in my estimation against the Broncos. They had a ton of motivation against the Bears because they looked so bad in those first 2 games. The Bills' offense has to get right.
Right.
So I like this look. They hate the Patriots. They have to get right. You put it all together, and why wouldn't they cover? I would, because I kind of like the over in this one, and your trends can comfortably get me off of it. If that's the case, then I want the Bills. And like Birdie saying in the chat, every week sharps are backing the Patriots. It's like the Browns of 3
The Browns
years
a couple seasons ago. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I like this spot that you're on. And
I found a -8 at -113. I don't know if you can beat that number.
I can't.
That Rivers has the -8, -113. And I feel to me that we're not seeing surprisingly enough, the only game that we saw any real points production out of New England was against that Eagles game, and it was raining, it was ugly, it was week 1 of the season. They don't sure what Mac Jones was going to do from an offensive performance yet at that point. And since then, they've only done less and less and less. I like that team total under for New England, but I just feel like the Bills, you're right, they're motivated. They've got to come out here. They're looking all over that clubhouse to try to figure out where the issues are. And every single person's willing to make a change that says, it's not me, that's the problem. I want to keep this job. I like being on this team. So I think they're going to open up. I think that lack of kind of digging in, you don't have a lot of guys that have a ton of experience and tenure across the board. So nobody's dug in. They don't have their heels dug in and saying, we're not going to change. This is the way I do it. They're all willing to be, flexible and try to find a way to come out with the right outcome. So I like that Bills spot quite a bit.
I like it too. Mikey, I'm on the Bills -8, -113. I think I'll move on it as well. It correlates enough for me to move on it. The motivation on a favorite has been very successful this year. Let's move on. Next up, 1 p.m. Eastern, Washington Commanders 3-3, 2-1 on the road at the New York Giants, 1-5, 0-2, a homer at MetLife in East Rutherford, 58 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 15-mile-per-hour winds. Let's get into the line history here and then the total. From a line history perspective, we are sitting here with the Commanders -2. That -2 is at +103. So the Giants at +2 have taken 12 cents, from a -104 opening to a -116. So maybe it's a real 1.5, but it's at 2 right now at penny. From a total scenario, we're sitting at a 40. That's where it opened. So there's been 5 cents of movement to the under, while all the other books have moved to 39.5. Pinnacle has not done that. Let's get over to the cash flow here for this Commanders spot. 54% of the tickets and 78% of the cash is on the New York Giants. From a total perspective, you have 95% of the tickets on the under, and we don't have any cash information yet. Washington comes in off an impressive 24-16 road win at Atlanta. Another situation where they were badly outgained, but they won, not for Washington, but for teams this past week. There's a few of them that were badly outgained and won pretty comfortably. They were outgained 402-193. It came away with the win. Sam Howell, 14-23 for 151 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The offensive line continues to not protect him. I mean, he was sacked 5 more times. He's now being sacked 34 times this season. Terry McLaurin, 6 catches for 81 yards. Brian Robertson had 10 carries for 31, caught 2 for 25. They were just 2 of 10 on third down, and they were 2 for 3 in the red zone. They continue their impressive stats there. 7th in the league, converting 61.9% of their opportunities. The defense bent but didn't break. 3 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and they got interceptions from Fuller, Davis, and St. Just. And, they had given up at least 33 in 4 straight games prior to shutting down the Falcons. And, DG or, Skydragon in the chat, he'd been talking a lot about how he still believes in this Washington defense, and he was rewarded for those beliefs. The Giants come in off a 14-9 loss at the Bills in their first game of the year without Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor was the replacement. They've elevated Tommy DeVito from the practice squad for this for last week's matchup. They worked out Matt Barkley and Ian Book yesterday. So it's it's just a pretty awful buffet of quarterbacks over there. Jones says his neck feels a lot better. He says he's working to be ready for week 7, but we know that we've done this before. We did this in 2021. He's not going to be medically cleared, is my guess. So he can say all he wants, but when it's your neck, it's hard to get the medical clearance. He couldn't get it for 2020 in 2021. That's why he sat out for the last 6 or whatever games of the year. Tyrod Taylor was 24-36 for 200 yards. He ran 5 times for 24 yards. Saquon looked pretty good, ran 24 times for 93 yards. Darius Slayton caught 4 for 69. Wandale caught 8 for 62. The Giants were 10 of 19 on third down, but again, they were 0-5 in the red zone, and they're so bad down there. Now, that will change with Saquon back, but they're 30th in the league, converting 31.25% of their red zone opportunities. For Daboll to call a run on the goal line at the end of the first half was astonishing. For such a smart offensive mind to not understand that he can give himself a couple opportunities if he'd like, it was just astonishing. I can't.
It's like he didn't want to win.
It was just like he's such a smart guy who I respect, and to see him make that decision. I mean, we all know that 2 opportunities is better than 1. I don't know why you would put yourself in that corner. New York has failed to score an offensive touchdown in the first half all year. 5 offensive touchdowns all year. The offensive line's an absolute mess. They began without Andrew Thomas and their center, John Michael Schmitz. Then Joshua Azudu, he's starting in place of Thomas. He left the game. He's got a toe injury. That brought Justin Pugh in. So he had been signed to New York's practice squad. He was playing his first game since tearing a knee ligament with Arizona last year. The defense was getting pressure on Josh Allen, or they weren't. It's hard to say. I mean, if you look at the stats, 0 sacks and 1 quarterback hit, but they held Allen to 169 yards. They made Allen uncomfortable. Right. Micah McFadden had an interception. Statistically, you'd say, well, they didn't get any pressure, but we saw it differently if you were watching the game. Take it away for us here, Mikey. Commanders, Giants at MetLife.
What a barn burner. As I dug into some of these stats, though, what had surprised me the most is Sam Howell's effectiveness in offense, his production in offense. He's got more passing yards than the top 3 quarterbacks out there. He's got more first down completions than top 3 quarterbacks out there. And he's got more touchdowns than top 3 quarterbacks out there. So if the rest of the team can kind of follow suit and bring this guy a little help, they might be a heck of a team to contend with in that, that NFC East right now. We saw Dallas step up last night and get the job done against the Chargers. Eagles kind of dealing with some of their woes and their issues that they had this past week. The Commanders probably feel like they're in a spot to do something here at 3-3. Now the Giants are 1-5. They're 0-2 at home. What we've seen by Tyrod Taylor coming in is that Saquon Barkley is healthy. He's ready to roll, and they are not afraid to put him into the fire. He had a pretty solid game last game there against the Bills. He had a number of touches. He was able to get production out of there. On the flip side of things, though, that Howell game, when you've got a quarterback that can produce offense against a Tyrod Taylor team that's going to have to run it, and we saw what they didn't do this past week, kind of eye-opening to me. It certainly makes me want to lean to this Commander side of the field here. Ron Rivera in a dog, after a dog win, Ron Rivera's 11-1 to the under. The New York Giants, after they score in a game that's gone less than 13 points, they're 0-7 against the spread in those spots. Now, Washington this season is 0-2 against the spread as a favorite, but a couple of those numbers kind of jumped out to me and thought, well, what does it say when you've got the under and the favorite? Those two, they correlate to me. You don't see the dog being able to generate that offense. We saw there was no offense out there. From a Commander's side of the ball, I like Howell. I like the offensive threat that he produces and faces. That defense that they were talking about there from being rewarded last game. Absolutely. Is it a get right spot for Daboll? I just don't think he's got the tools out there right now. They've got some issues on their offensive line. They've got some issues with the quarterback. Their bigger lingering issue with the quarterback and Danny Dimes there is it muscle strain or is it pinched nerve? And, one's going to be potentially threatening the rest of his season. The other might be something they can kind of work through if they give him a little bit more rest. So I expect Tyrod Taylor to get back in there, as you mentioned. And I just think it's going to come down to Howell or Taylor. I think Howell's got more upside for us. Home dogs, when they're coming off a line that's less than 4 and a total that's under 45, they're not generating offense. They're scoring less than 15 points a game. So I got to go to the Commanders here. I got to lean on this Washington side of the ball. I feel like they're going to find that offense. Will they do it early? I hope so. It's a divisional game, so I think it's going to be low scoring. But again, a low total or a low number for me on a low total. The Commanders team totals at 20.5. The Giants at 19.5. I don't want to overreact to what I saw last week, but I see a -1.5 out there right now for the Commanders. -1.5 is -110 at PointsBet. Let me see what the money line is before I just make that decision. But you know what? I'm going to go with the money line on the Commanders at -125. I'm going to take the road favorite in a divisional game. Is probably not a spot that you're going to make a ton of money on this season, but I just think with this offense that we've seen from the Giants and what the Commanders are capable of, that's going to be the way I lead.
When this line came out, I immediately went to the idea that if the books are now actively trying to beat us and they don't care about 50-50 money, they're actively trying to beat us, then they just put out a line so that 90% of people will want the Commanders. That was just how could this be under a field goal? So that's what scares me. I don't want the Giants at home, but it feels like, you're looking around the cave and you want to put your sleeping bag down and there's a bear quietly sitting there in the corner. Like, it just feels like that. Because why would they place this under a field goal? So it's just who in the world would want the Giants? Like, the line was just shocking to me, so shocking that I can't.
Look at the Giants' point production, though, right? They scored 9 points last week. They scored 16 points the week before. They scored 3 points the week before that. They scored 12 points the week before that. We need 2 touchdowns out of the Commanders to be able to beat this team, and I think they're capable of that with Sam Howell at offense. Now, can they even turn it over and maybe contribute something on the defensive side of the ball? Why not? And then vice versa. You look at the Commanders: 24 points, 20 points, 31 points. Yeah, they had that 3 against Buffalo. That was kind of the isolated spot there, but Buffalo showed that they could shut down the Giants too in that kind of overlay or correlated opponent type of spot. So, and then they put up 35 against Denver. So their offense is capable of firing. The question is going to be, to me, does the Giants offense fire? You're going to feed Barkley the ball. Then what happens when it comes to third downs? Well, the Giants don't do squat when it comes to third downs in these games. Their overall effectiveness in third down is certainly ranking lower in the league. They're not able to generate those opportunities. They go out 3 and out on their drives more than most teams in the NFL. They're currently 8th in the NFL when it comes to 3 and outs in the second half of the game as well. We'll see. We'll see what happens in this spot. I just felt like it's a low number for me to take what I think is clearly the better team.
They are clearly the better team. If they are clearly the better team, the number just makes
the number scary. I get it. That's how I felt last week too with a couple spots. So
I will. While the books are actively trying to beat us, I will actively cheer you on. I'm not going to be moving on this one. Let's move on. 1 p.m. Eastern, Atlanta Falcons 3-3, 0-2 on the road at Tampa Bay Buccaneers 3-2, 1-2 at home at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. 77 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 4 miles per hour. We talk about the teams and the players and the pitchers that are predictable. And when they're predictable, we love them. They become our favorite teams and our favorite players because we can make money off of them. These are 2 very predictable teams. And I don't think anybody's, more predictable than the Buccaneers. And I've fallen in love. I lost the +3.5 badly last week. I cashed the under 44. But while I was watching, I was like, oh, good God, we're going to be able to make money off of them. 77 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 4 miles per hour. Let's go into the line history here for this one. We're sitting with the Buccaneers at -2.5. It's juiced to -114. This got juiced up to -122. It's sitting right now at -114. And if we take a look around here, I guess it's pretty common. It's pretty common. I was thinking that there was some difference. No, everyone's sort of got that same situation here with the -2.5. But Will Hill doesn't have it juiced. The other books have it juiced. So let's get over to the cash here let's get into the total then for this one. See what we are dealing with for Falcons Bucks. It's at 38. This opened up at 40. It opened up at 40 at 7:47 p.m. 12 minutes later, it was juiced to -119. That's basically a 39. When it was 39 at 9:51 in the morning, it would, within 2 hours, it was -118. Now we're at 38. So it's a very low total here. Stimmy OG, what's happening? Ron Crawford looking at Bucks money line. And Sky Dragon says Tampa Bay minus 2.5 and under 38.5 are very easy bets, fading this Atlanta poverty offense. That makes perfect sense to me, what you're doing there. Perfect sense. 38% of tickets, 93% of cash on the under. And then from a spread perspective, 75% of the tickets and 88% of cash on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Start with the Falcons. Coming off a very disappointing 24-16 loss at home versus Commanders. Outgained the Commanders 402-193. 25 first downs compared to the Commanders 13. But just boneheaded decisions by Desmond Ridder cost the Falcons the game. Ridder was 28 for 47 for 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Drake London caught 9 for 125. Bijan Robinson ran 13 times for 37, caught 5 for 43. They held on to the ball for 36 minutes and 23 seconds. And they're averaging 16.5 points per game, 29th in the NFL because of Desmond Ridder. The defense was strong. They held the Commanders to what we talked about, 193 total yards, 13 first downs. They sacked Howell 5 times, hit him 10 times. Atlanta is 6th in the league, allowing touchdowns on just 43.75% of their red zone opportunities. I saw that the line moved heavily to the over in the UK game, but it made no sense to me. It made no sense when we're talking about how talented some of these red zone defenses are. It just made no sense whatsoever. And here Atlanta is really good in the red zone defensively. And, net yards per play, Falcons are plus 0.3. The Bucks are 23rd, minus 0.3. So you have the Falcons ranked 12th in the league, net yards per play, Bucks 23rd. But to me, Tampa will beat these football teams. And they'll lose to the elite teams. And they showed that with that 26 loss at home to the Lions. Baker 19 of 37 for 206 yards and a pick. Godwin caught 6 passes for 77 yards, and Mike Evans caught 4 for 49. As long as they are both healthy, then, one of them can't be double teamed, because you can't expect a run game from the Bucks. Rachaad White's not going to give it to you. He did run 7 times for 26 yards, but as a team, they ran 16 times for 46 yards. They were just 2 of 12 on third down. It's because they can't run for first downs, on third or third long. They have no ability to do that. And so they have to pass the ball. And it's pretty easy to set up your secondary to cover Godwin and Evans and have extra guys in there. They went 0-2 in the red zone. They're 24th in the red zone, converting 42.86% of their opportunities. The D tried to keep them in at 3 sacks, held the Lions to 40 yards rushing, but they couldn't stop them through the air. The Lions had 19 first downs, 16 of them coming by passes. So that does concern me, because we know Ridder's going to air it out, but we also know that Ridder's being browbeaten by Arthur Smith nonstop. We all know that's been happening. So I have to imagine that Ridder's going to be a little more conservative this week. And they continue their excellent work in the red zone defensively. They're the number 1 team in the league. They allow TDs on 23.08% of their drives. They held the Lions to 0-2 in the red zone. So you have these 2 great red zone defenses. Who cares that the total so low that it is at 38? You had cornerback Jamal Dean and defensive lineman Kalijah Cansey back in the starting lineup. We saw Cansey all over the field. They did lose outside linebacker Anthony Nelson. He's been out with a concussion. He's not coming back. He was inactive last week. But they got healthier and healthier. And I like everything that DG's on, personally. So I want to move on the Bucks, and I want to move on this very low total, go under it. But I haven't done it yet. So let's see if I will gain more confidence or less with Mikey's breakdown. Take it away, Falcons Bucks.
Yeah, boy, you talk about the deep threat capability or getting into the red zone, and a couple of, I guess I'll call them potential injuries. There's a great follow that I have on this sports med analysis thing on Twitter, rather, or X now, and they break down some of these guys pretty extensively, even things that don't make the injury report that they go through video analysis on. And they got an injury factor for Baker Mayfield. He's got it's not really a concern. It's his non-throwing hand injury. It's going to have a low impact on him. But on the other side of things, Mike Evans has a high re-injury risk going over his next 6 weeks is kind of the projection out there. So they expect him to be 90% effective going through week 7, which scares me when you've got a deep ball threat like him. He's a vulture with targets out there on the offense. He's got over 9.5 targets on average a game this season. He is that deep ball threat. And when they're clicking, they are clicking. And speaking of not clicking though, you look at some of these situations here where the Falcons have turned the ball over 10 times this season. They're tied for 6th most in the NFL. That's certainly a factor that falls on Desmond Ridder. The Bucs have forced 10 turnovers this season. That ties them for 8th most in the NFL. The Falcons have scored only 2.8 points per game in the first quarter this season, 9th worst in the NFL. The Bucs have allowed 3 points per game in the first quarter this season, which is 9th best in the NFL. So you've got kind of 9th doesn't get me overly excited, but it's the top third of the league. And so you're kind of that top third, middle third, bottom third. I certainly would rather be in that top third than the bottom third. And so another factor that jumped out at the page for me was just what does Desmond Ridder do in the first half of games? Well, guess what? In his career, he's 0-10 against the spread in the first half in the NFL. The guy just can't get it done in the first half of the NFL. So it leads me to my play here with, couple this injury factor. It's a non-throwing hand injury, and you got the Evans factor. That scares me a little bit away from the full game because they might throttle back if they get enough of a lead, and that kind of opens the back door. There's also the factor that re-injury risk is vulnerable for Evans, and then what happens is that offense go into flux, and then you've got that non-throwing hand injury for Baker. You guys have heard me talk about Baker Mayfield on a number of live streams. I'm not a big fan of this guy. He's finally looks like he's opening the playbook and taking his job seriously, but for me, Tampa Bay first half, -1.5. It's -105 is the best number I saw out there. And I wouldn't be surprised. You want to talk about a bold proclamation here? Look for Taylor Heineke in the second half of this game. So if you're a prop player, if you're looking for that quick edge to find something to make some money on, his passing yard prop, his rushing yard prop, very much both might be alive in the second half of this game, just simply because how much more can they get sick of Desmond Ridder? You can see the body language and the players on the Falcons on the sideline. They're tired of Desmond Ridder. They're tired of his shit. They don't want to play with this guy. They're stuck with him because of the investment and the commitment that Atlanta's made through them this season. But, I wouldn't be surprised to see that hook in the second half, especially if they're lying around this game in a 2-point situation, right? If they go into the halftime and it's, let's say it's 10-7, right? I mean, surprisingly, Desmond Ridder would have to get a touchdown. That's probably not as practical. But let's say it's 6-0. Let's say neither team can score. They get 2 field goals and it's 6-0. Very much Tampa Bay or Atlanta feels they're alive in this game. And then out comes Ridder, in goes Heineke, and they try to go back out there and get that win in the second half. So lock me down for Tampa Bay first half -1.5. Get cute if you want. I would look for some Tyler Heineke props.
You have got it. Ecom Bo chilling here in Escazú, Costa Rica. Respect those days very, very much. Sweet, sweet Escazú, Costa Rica. I like it. Mikey M on the Bucks first half -1.5, -105. I want the Bucks and the under. Birdie and Wham Bam liking Atlanta. You know what? I think this is going to be very enjoyable, and I think the Buccaneers are very predictable, as are the Falcons, and we're just going to see a defense in the Bucks that can stop the Falcons in the red zone. We're going to see a Buccaneers offense that's going to struggle in the red zone. I mean, this to me, it's just going to be, we're going to be going field goals at a time here, yeah. And so. I like a ton of running. We know that especially with Arthur Smith being so angry with Ridder. So I like it. I like your first half.
Can you blame him for being angry, though? I mean, the guy makes bad decisions. He doesn't get the ball. He's not productive. He's not effective. That score last week, 24-16 against Washington, is misleading because they were down multiple scores that entire game, and they were able to sneak something in there in the back door at the end to make it look less disgusting than it actually was. I got so mad at watching that game, I had to flip it over at halftime to something else. And then, they beat Houston by 2 points. Okay, they still didn't cover the spread. They got beat down by Jacksonville. They only put up a touchdown. They got beat up by Detroit, only got 6 points. They haven't covered a spread. They're not covering first halves. They're probably not covering full games. But the Tyler Heineke factor for me is the wild card that keeps me off that full game.
I like it. I like where we're at in this one, and I will be betting it this evening. And Birdie saying that there hasn't been with all the money here on the Buccaneers at this point, 75% of the tickets, 87% of the cash. It did move to 3 at BetChris. There was a 10-cent move at one point at Pinnacle. It's come back a little bit. I can understand being a little nervous about it. I can. Birdie says Lions had no running backs. That's true, and we're going to get into that Lions game right now, but I don't fear Atlanta, and I love their defense. So, but let's roll on. I will be on the Bucks and the under. Mike's going to be on the Bucks first half -1.5, which might be better than the full game. I like your game script with Heineke coming in. Let's move on. 1 p.m. Eastern. The Detroit Lions 5-1, 3-0 on the road. The Baltimore Ravens 4-2, 1-1 at home at M&T Bank Stadium, Baltimore, Maryland. 60 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 15 miles per hour. I've been looking at the futures market quite a lot this week, and I looked at the Lions to win the conference, and I came very close to betting it. There are two spots that I plan on moving on. One with a max bet for me. I'll have to call in if I want to bet more than $500. I have to call and, if I want to, but I think 500 is fine for the one max bet that I'm going to be making. That's later on. And then I am interested in another one at a bigger price, but we'll get into that later. I'm not going to move on the Lions at this point. 60 Fahrenheit, cloudy, 15 mile per hour winds at M&T Bank Stadium in Charm City. Let's get right into the Lion history here for this one. Lions, Ravens. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to watch this football game. First off, on the spread, we're sitting here at 3 at Pinnacle. The 3 is pretty juiced towards the Detroit Lions. This opened up at 2.5, and it moved to 3. The first time it moved to 3, it got right back to 2.5, and now we're back at 3 again, and that 3 is juiced for the Lions. So it's pretty clear to me, at 2.5, the sharp bettors are hammering the Ravens. At 3, the sharp bettors are hammering the Lions. It's a pretty clear situation, and I like clarity. When we go to the total here, we have it at 42. This opened up at 44. It's dropped 2 points to 42. Now, it did drop down to 41.5, so there has been a little bit of buyback. We get over to the cash flow for this one. You have 49% of the tickets and 63% of the cash on the Detroit Lions. And from a total perspective, 80% of the tickets and 94% of cash on the under. Sky Dragons on the over 42 and Detroit +3. Harold Williams on the Lions +3. Spenny Penny Bombs on the Lions +3 and the money line. Brady said he bet the Lions +3, then Lions +8.5. Alt spreads and Lions money line. At 5-1, the Lions are off to their fastest start since 2011. Now that Eagles-Niners lost, they all share the same best record. They come in off that impressive 26 win at Tampa. They've won 4 straight games, all by at least 14 points. They have won 7 of their last 8 road games dating back to last year. They won despite losing David Montgomery to a rib injury and being unable to move the ball on the ground. Jameer Gibbs was inactive with a hamstring injury. They were down to Craig Reynolds, who ran 10 times for just 15 yards, but that block he put on to give Amon-Ra St. Brown to give him that boost was spectacular. It's just great. So he still really helped in the win. So Montgomery's rib injury will keep him out of the lineup this week, and there is because it's a cartilage issue, there's a real chance that he's going to end up on IR. And Campbell thinks that Jameer Gibbs will be back. First-round pick will be back after missing the past 2 games with a hamstring injury. He rushed for 179 yards on 39 carries this year. 70 yards and 14 catches as well through 4 games. And his best game came when Montgomery was inactive. It was against the Falcons. He rushed 17 times for 80 yards. And if he gets the bulk of the carries, if his hamstring can stay together, he's going to be able to deliver. The Lions have rushed for 124.2 yards per game. That includes just 40 last week with the injuries. They have the 7th ranked rush offense DVOA. And it'll be very, very important to all of our capping to see if they can maintain that without Montgomery on the field and whether or not Jameer Gibbs is going to be, healthy and stay healthy. They looked excellent through the air against the Bucs. Goff was 30 of 44 for 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Amon-Ra St. Brown caught 12 passes for 124 yards and a touchdown. Sammy Laporta had 4 catches for 36 yards. He's 1 catch away from joining Keith Jackson, Jordan Reed, and Kyle Pitts as the only tight ends in NFL history with 30 receptions through their first 6 games of their career. Lions were 9-16 on 3rd down. They held the ball for 36 minutes and 30 seconds. That's a recipe of winning football games, especially on the road. They didn't have to do much. Their defense against this lackluster Bucs offense, they sacked Baker once, hit him 4 times, held him to 0-2 in the red zone, 2 of 12 on 3rd down. Detroit's red zone defense has not been good this year. They ranked 21st, allowing touchdowns 57.89% of the time. Cornerback Brian Branch, Jonah Jackson were inactive. Branch has missed the past 2 games with the ankle injury. They have managed fine with Will Harris in the nickel spot. Will Harris had the interception in the game, but they need Branch. They need Branch back. He's a big piece of the puzzle. His pick 6 this year. He has 25 tackles, 3 for a loss. He's been good. The Ravens head back to North America after their 24-16 win over the Titans in London, England. Lamar Jackson, 21 of 30 for 223 yards, a touchdown and a pick. He also ran 13 times for 62 yards. Mark Andrews still has yet to have that breakout game that we're all waiting for. Coming back from the quad injury, he's looking stronger each week. But he hasn't had the breakout game. Against the Titans, he caught 4 for 69. The Ravens should have escalated that score, but 1 of 6 in the red zone, and that's not been an issue for them this year. So that's just a 1-game sample size. They're still 9th in the league, 58.3% of their opportunities they're cashing for 6. The defense looked very strong, 6 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. One of those knocked Tannehill out of the game, held the Titans to just 233 total yards, 1 of 9 on third down. The second best red zone defense in the league was back at it, held the Titans to 1 of 4 on the day. Geno Stone had to pick. Justin Tucker 6 for 6 on field goals. This is a very good team. Now, they're still dealing with injuries. Cornerback Kevon Seymour ruled out with the ankle injury last week. Malik Harrison left for concussion. He's in concussion protocol. Harbaugh didn't give an update. And we're still waiting for Marcus Williams to be given a good to go. He's still dealing with his hamstring injury. We're not sure if he's going to play this week. And the Ravens have lost each of their last 4 games as favorites following a win. And everybody in the chat on the Lions, I'm not going to be on the Lions. I know that this is a bad travel spot for the Ravens, but let's see the Lions go out on the road again and win on the road again. And if you guys all cash, God bless you. Maybe you keep me off of the Ravens. But I don't. This is Ravens or no bet for me at this point. Take it away, Mikey. Floor is yours.
Boy, there's some closing thoughts there that kind of got me a little on the nervous end of things here, because I like this I like this Lions +3 and the money line spots, but the numbers when you look at these lines kind of scare me. I guess I'm kind of countering the line or lack of line movement with the fact that they do have that Montgomery issue, the Laporta uncertainty as well. So. I guess I can kind of dismiss it a little bit, but, breaking down the numbers, Detroit, 11-0 against the spread when they've won their last game by more than a score. Guess who the best team is in the NFL since they hooked up in the Campbell-Goff era? No team has covered more spreads and been more productive in winning games than the Detroit Lions. Right now, they're 28-12. They're 5-1 on this season together. They're just winners. Baltimore, when Lamar Jackson is a favorite, one of the worst in the NFL, especially coming off of travel. He's 8-16 against the spread as a favorite. Another factor that's in there, and I don't know how you feel about this. I'm curious your thoughts when you look at, we talk about this with baseball, right? When a team's got 3 factors in a row, and then they go on the road, or 3 at home, and then they go, or vice versa, 3 on the road and then come back home. I think that those are fade spots for you in Major League Baseball. I don't want to volunteer it for you, but I think those are some fade spots. I kind of like that same strategy when it comes to the NFL here. And, we had 3 big travel spots for the Baltimore Ravens, right? They had their game at Cleveland. 2 big divisional games as well. You don't think that wears you down? They beat up Cleveland 28-3. They lost to Pittsburgh 17-10. Then they had that London travel spot. And I just don't think that adds up to much of an opportunity here. Now, for those that are thinking Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the guy that gets the job done, 2 things. First of all, he's not the guy. He's the receiving back. Detroit likes to have a running back that pounds and ground and pounds the ball between the tackles, and they like to have that outlet receiving back. That's why Gibbs is there. You saw that with Swift a year ago, and Gibbs is that replacement. He's more than capable replacement, but he's coming off that injury. Big factor with the injury that he's coming back from. You're not going to go all in with this guy, but Craig Reynolds has experience in the NFL. He's come in here from time to time to spell Montgomery when there were some mid-game injuries earlier this season. And I do think he's going to be the guy that goes out there as the one of the 1-2 punch. So could I be wrong? Sure. I've been wrong plenty of times before. But, look at the offense and just look at overall teams. The Detroit Lions are one of the most balanced teams in the NFL right now. They're productive on offense. They're 4th at points per game, averaging 29.6. Their DVOA in Detroit and the defense against the run is 4th in the NFL. And their pass is 8th in the NFL. So it's a stacked team, both offensively and defensively. We know that they brought an offensive line to beef that up this year so they can continue to support Goff and provide that opportunity for that 1-2 running punch. And if you start looking at game script, to me, you've got Detroit's run defense versus Baltimore's run offense. Baltimore runs the 2nd highest run rate in the NFL at just under 51% of their time that they pass that ball out there. Oh, and by the way, it's a windy game. They're projecting 16 miles an hour wind. I don't think Lamar Jackson's very much a passing threat anyways. He's a keep the ball on the ground type of guy. And that's where that run opens up the pass. But in this case, I think what's going to happen with this Detroit game is I think they're going to shut down that run. I think Detroit's going to find a way to bottle that thing up. You already talked about Mark Andrews not being as effective and having, I mean, Jesus, a year ago, he was 125 yards and 1 to 2 touchdowns every single game. We just haven't seen that this season. So now what's going to happen is you're going to take Baltimore, who ranks 17th in the NFL in passing. If that ground game gets stopped, now you got Lamar Jackson that has to pass in 16 to 20 mile an hour winds. And a game when we do have wind factors for the home favorite, when the wind's over 15 miles an hour, it goes 9-19 to the under. I got to take this Detroit side of things. I don't care. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the +3 and I'm going to take the money line. I talked myself into it, out of it, and then back into it. And I was into it from the get-go. So I got the +3 at -105. And unless you can get better on these money lines here, I see a +142 on the money line.
I will do some line shopping for that for you when we break down the next spot. I don't think I move on the Ravens at this point. I would like Gibbs to be announced in, and I with all of you guys on the Lions, I take that to heart. So I'm going to sit with this a little longer. Mikey has moved on the Lions plus the points, as well as the money line. That concludes 1 p.m. action. Let's move on to afternoon action. 4:05 p.m. Eastern. Pittsburgh Steelers 3-2, 1-1 on the road at the LA Rams 3-3, 1-2 at home. I cannot wait for this football game. SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, with the Steelers coming in off their bye week and everybody loving the Rams. We had the great situation where we were on the Eagles against the Rams, where everybody was on the Rams. Everybody keeps making money off the Rams, and I want Pittsburgh here. I also want the under, so I was surprised, perplexed that this went to the over. Opened up at 42.5, climbed to 43.5. The other books have 44s, so that gave me pause. Sky Dragon with the exact same spots that I want here as well. That surprised me, and it's not that I don't want it now. I just want to see how high it goes at this point. The spread is sitting at 3. It opened up at 3.5 and quickly went to 3. So we have a half-point move towards the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off of the bye. Let's get into the cash flow for this one. 51% of the ticket, 79% of the cash is on the Rams. Yeah, that concerns me, but why did it go from 3.5 to 3? And then on a total perspective, you have 67% of the tickets and 74% of cash on the over. That also concerns me, but it hasn't been hurting unders when it moves to the over. Beating the line moves, or having the lines go against you has been quite successful with totals this year. Steelers coming off their bye week, their last season, 17-10 win at home over the Ravens. They won somehow, despite gaining 88 yards in the first half. Another game where Najee Harris did nothing, 37 yards on 14 carries. The offense had 201 yards in the second half, but 80 came on that game-winning drive. They're 3-2 despite this woeful offense. Pickett has more interceptions than touchdowns now in his career. His career quarterback rating is 77.3. All he talks about is that winning is most important, and he is 10-7 and 17 career starts. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have been unbelievable. Watt has 8 sacks. That's ahead of the 2021 pace, I should say. I was going to say the 22.5 record that he's got when he won Defensive Player of the Year. The Steelers have also won their last 4 games as road underdogs. I won them outright. And I want them here because everybody wants the Rams and loves the Rams. And the Rams are coming off that 26-9 victory at home over Arizona. Stafford 15-24 for 226 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp caught 7 for 148. Puka Nacua caught just 4 for 26, but the reviews and the ratings as a blocker were phenomenal. I mean, he's just a complete package. Puka Nacua, 50 catches for 598 yards, still the most by any player in the first 6 games of the Super Bowl era. Kyron Williams ran 20 times for 158 yards. They ran the ball down the Cardinals' throat in the second half, and Williams responded. He had 58 carries over his last 3 games. The issue is that he has an ankle sprain, and backup Ronnie Rivers has a grade 3 PCL sprain.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this line is not moving more. So we don't know if Kyron Williams is going to be out this week at this point. He could be. But Rivers is going to be out 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, he's going to be on IR. Maybe he's already been put on IR. So if you take out Rivers and Williams, now, obviously, I want that to be the case because I'm on Pittsburgh. They will have to rely on Zach Evans. So, I mean, he has 4 carries for 10 yards in the one game he's played. They have Royce Freeman on the practice squad, whom they could call up. They were just 4 of 12 on third down and 2 of 5 in the red zone. The defense completely shut down the Cardinals, but, Joshua Dobbs and O'Connor. I mean, that's what the Cardinals are. They finished with 2 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. They held the Cardinals to 0-3 in the red zone. They ranked 9th in the league, holding opponents to touchdowns just 47.37% of the time. And Kobe Turner made his first career start in place of the injured Bobby Brown nose tackle, and he looked pretty good. The Rams have not covered the spread in their last 8 games at SoFi following a victory. And, I want the Steelers here off of the bye. I think that the move to the over, is if the running backs are out, then it's going to be an all passing game for the Rams. Maybe that's one explanation for it. But I like the Steelers here, and I like the under. Take it away for us here, Mikey. Steelers, Rams at SoFi.
A couple key guys coming back too. I think Freiermuth's scheduled to come back this week. Deontay Johnson's supposed to be coming back this week for the Steelers as well. So you guys know when the stars come back, I tend to fade those teams, but this is a tricky game for me. We've got you mentioned the SoFi factor. A couple other numbers that I looked at here. First of all, teams that come off a bye, you would think the extra rest does them well. That's not the case. They're actually 10-23 straight up coming off that bye. And 8-25 to the under. So what they're doing is they're playing a defensive game, and it takes them a while to get back into a rhythm. Pittsburgh in a situation here, Mike Tomlin, after a big win, and a big win defined as either a divisional opponent or a game where they were a big underdog, is 5-11 against the spread. So what that tells me is this isn't a rah-rah game for Tomlin. He used his rah-rah game against Baltimore. Now he's going under the bye week. He's going to get his defense right and tight. They're going to try to find a way to play that defensive ball first, and they're going to try to ease these guys, Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth, into that game. What scares me about the Rams side of things is that potential one-dimensional look here when it comes to passing. And Mike Tomlin's smart enough to know that if they don't have a running game and they're signing backups that are coming off the practice squad to be an actual bona fide starter in week 7 of the NFL, that he should be able to shut that down and scheme against that. Forcing, now you got to force this ball in the air. You got Stafford having to air this ball out, and it's a recipe for disaster. So couple that with the fact that the LA Rams, they rank 6th worst in the NFL in terms of second half points per game. They're scoring just 8.1. So a one-dimensional team that, faces that being down potentially at halftime, with the weapons coming back in that are healthy and ready to roll for the Steelers, puts, I think, the Steelers in a really good position here, despite what I talked about with that rah-rah situation for Tomlin. The nuts and the bolts of this thing is I stayed off it. I was looking at the under on the teaser as the second leg for that Colts side of things. So I was looking at the Colts and this under 50 on this teaser. What was that Colts number at? I'm going to just take a peek back at this thing here.
Yeah.
Colts. I can get the Colts at 8.5 in the teaser, and then I can get the under 50 for this Rams game. I'm going to do that. I'm going to lock that in. So it's going to be the Colts plus 8.5 and the under 50 in the Rams Pittsburgh game. That's going to be my teaser.
I like it. I don't think that we get higher than this number. I'm going to bet this this evening. I'm going to take both the Steelers and the under. I'm going to move on it tonight. Mike M's on the Colts plus 8.5 and the under 50 for his teaser. Let's roll on. Next up for us, 4:05 p.m. Eastern, Arizona Cardinals 1-5, 0-3 on the road at the Seattle Seahawks, 3-2, 1-1 at home. Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington, 55 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 5 miles per hour. Also get to the survivor pools here. I imagine that our whole pool at Pub Sports, our survivor is all going to be on Seattle. Seattle's. I thought this was going to be a really tough week, but Arizona's looking worse and worse, and Seattle seems angry after that 17-13 loss at Cincy. So this will be my survivor pick this week, and I imagine most people will be using it as well. I'm going to use it in both my pools. We're Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington, 55 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 5 miles per hour. Let's get into the line history here for this one. We're sitting with the Seahawks -8 I certainly don't find that appealing from a spread perspective in a divisional game. There's been an 8-cent move or 9-cent move to Arizona from the opening line. From a total perspective here, we have it sitting at 44.5. That's juiced to the over. 44, all the way down to 44. Other books have the half, but not here. So it's dropped 2 points from 46 down to 44. And we go down to the cash here. You have 81% of the tickets, but just 69% of cash on the under. And from a spread look, you have 35% of tickets, 65% of cash on the Cardinals. The Cardinals are just, I think they will continue to get worse, as the season goes on, especially with the injuries that they're facing with both starting safeties out with Jalen Thompson out with the hamstring. Now he could come back, and Budda Baker is actually eligible to come back this week from IR. That would help them very much because they also lost Antonio Hamilton, their cornerback, to a groin injury in the fourth quarter. But I don't want this football team here. They've gotten a lot of Joshua Dobbs. They're coming off that ugly 26-9 loss. He was 21-41 for 235 yards and a pick. He also led the team on the ground running 7 times for 47 yards. He also lost a fumble. James Conner's injured, and it's a huge loss. He was playing really inspired football, and it's a huge loss. We thought it was going to be a lot of Amari Demercado, but Keontae Ingram got a ton of run. Damian Williams got some. The three combined to run 20 times for 87 yards. It's not bad. It's not like it's a huge, but Connor in the red zone really helps this football team. Michael Wilson caught 3 passes for 62 yards. Trey McBride caught 4 for 62 as well. They struggled in the red zone again. They went 0-3. They're tied for 20th in the red zone, converting 50% of their opportunities. And I'm telling you, that number will keep dropping with Connor out for at least 3 more games. Cards were held without a point in the second half. The defense tried to keep them in it, but the Rams ran the ball down their throat. They did finish with 3 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. The Cardinals have not covered a spread in 10 of their last 11 games against the NFC West, but this is a big dog spot. Seahawks coming off a tough 17-13 loss at Cincinnati. They outgained the Bengals 381-214. Geno Smith 27-41 for 323 and 2 picks. Lockett caught 6 for 94. DK caught 4 for 69. And Kenneth Walker ran 19 times for 62 yards and a touchdown, caught 3 for 27. These are really good playmakers on this football team. So why were they unable to deliver? And they were 1 of 5 in the red zone. They're 20th in the league in red zone opportunities, hitting 50%. I don't know why that is. The defense held the Bengals to just 214 yards, but their red zone defense is appalling. The numbers don't make any sense. They allow opponents to score touchdowns on an insane 90% of opportunities. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That's got to come back to the mean. I mean, that's just absolutely ludicrous. So the Bengals were 2 of 2 in the red zone, of course. And this defense good everywhere else. I mean, they held the Bengals to 3 of 11 on third down. They get 3 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. They pick Trey Brown picked off Burrow, but it doesn't seem to matter. The Seahawks have not covered the spread in each of their last 6 games as favorites against the NFC West opponents. Look, I don't want them at this number, and I don't know what to do with the total. I think it's a good move from 46 to 44, but now we're getting pretty low. I think that this is an angry Seahawks squad that will try to open it up. This is just the survivor pick for me at this point. What are you doing with this one? Lumen Field, Seattle, Washington, Mikey, Cardinals, Seahawks.
Tough spot, man. I mean, Seattle, I thought they outplayed the Bengals last week. I don't know how the score ended up the way it did, because I actually watched that game from start to finish. I had like one TV on the red zone, and I kind of watched one game kind of whole time. And this was one of those games I was invested on the Seattle side of the ball with a +3. To see them lose by 4 was like the ultimate gut punch. The under was great. I was able to live bet some under spots in there, and some of the trends lined up for me there, but I just don't understand what happened. And then on the flip side of things, I was vocal in saying I think the Cardinals were going to have an opportunity to beat the Rams outright, and they got beat down 26-9. So 2 teams in this conference or this division where I just don't have a good feel for my finger on the pulse. And in this game, I got enough plays out there. I'm not going to try to thread the needle. I do have a teaser that I put together. It's a 3-legger that was +170, but I don't know if I'm going to go official with that here. I got enough plays out there. This is the spot that I don't know. Seattle coming back home should be motivated to get the job done. Arizona without Connor, have we seen them kind of hit the bubble burst, right? I thought they were playing decent early with Dobbs, and then things kind of fell apart for them there. And they were even up in the first quarter, and even some of that first half of that Rams game, and then they lost. And if you look at common opponent, They beat 34-20. They lost to Cincinnati, where the Seahawks just played them 17-13. It's because it's back-to-back weeks that I think that factor is relevant, where you see, there was more offensive production by the Seahawks, or I should say defensive production by the Seahawks. But I'm going to stay off this game. I don't have a feel for it one way or the other. I'd be remiss. I'm not going to. I don't know if I'll bet it more than this teaser that I have cooking, but I don't have any look for it. I don't have a feel for it. I don't have a look for it. I really have. All I wrote on this thing was Seattle outplayed Cincinnati, Arizona without Connor. If we've seen the bubble burst, that's literally the only numbers I have for this game. It's not even numbers.
Yeah,
it's like that guy that gave me the 2 words. 2 words. 1992.
And Birdie says Dobbs is walking dead. Announced today that Murray's coming off the IR. This will be Dobbs' last start. Seattle and the teaser is a great look. Says Bill, Seattle teaser. We should all bet that right now. He says, look, I just want Seattle to take care of business, get me to move on in the Survivor and get me on to week 8. So let's move on. 4:25 p.m. Eastern. Green Bay Packers 2-3, 1-2 on the road. Denver Broncos 1-5, 0-3 at home. Empower Field, Mile High. Denver, Colorado, 73 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 7 miles per hour. And I have a sickness, and it's the Broncos. I can't stop it. It took everything not to bet them last week. Like I literally had it queued up so many times, and then they don't cover by a half point. And I saved that. It took everything. I wanted to bet them so badly, and they didn't deserve to be in that game. They didn't deserve to cover that game either, but here I want them again, and I don't know what the hell is going on with me, but I want them again. Denver right now is at +1 at even money. They opened up at a +1 at -106. So there's been 6 cents of movement to the Green Bay Packers. And we talk about the optional misery situation here. I mean, I don't need to go through this. I don't need to experience this. I can just let this go, but I just have this sickness. The total is sitting at 44.5. That's, where it opened. It's now juiced to the over. So we had 7-cent move to the over. We've had a similar type move towards the Packers. We get to the cash flow here. You have 42% of the tickets and 71% of the cash on the Broncos. So, line's not moving towards them, but feels like big bets are coming on them. 88% of the tickets and 77% of cash on the under. The Packers coming off their bye week. They were last seen in an ugly 17-13 loss at Las Vegas. So, there's some great stats here that we're going to talk about, the difference between how they open it and where they've been. And then you as a capper have to decide whether this bye week will then help Jordan Love and will help LaFleur get through to him. And that's the most important factor here. They averaged 31 points over their first 2 games. They've averaged 17 over their last 3. They've been outscored 54-6 in the first half of their past 3 games. Love looked excellent off the hop, 6 touchdowns without an interception through 2 games. Love has 6 interceptions and 2 touchdowns over his last 3 games. He was the leading NFL in passer rating through the first 2 weeks of the season. He now ranks 28th in that category. He has completed 55.6% of his passes. That's the lowest percentage for any starting quarterback in the league. Left tackle David Bakhtiari done for the rest of the season with the knee injuries. You have Elton Jenkins, John Runyon, and Josh Myers. They're the only players on Green Bay's first team offense with more than 1 year of starting experience. So why would it change? We can go through the first team offense, but we're just talking, it's all, first year starters, 2 rookies and Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave. I mean, this team is going to be good at some point, but don't expect them to be good now. But are they better than the Broncos? Maybe. A.J. Dillon has struggled badly. Final season of his rookie contract. I mean, just thank God he's not like a friend of mine watching him piss away millions of dollars here. Aaron Jones sidelined. He's expected to be back this week. And Dillon just finally had his first decent game. He rushed for 76 yards in that last one before the bye. So Darnell Savage and Quay Walker are, both LaFleur says that we're hopeful that they potentially will be back for this game. I think they will be back. Broncos coming off extra rest after losing 19-8 at Kansas City on Thursday night. The offense was completely shut down in the loss, outgained 389-197. Russell Wilson 13-22 for 95 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. He also ran 4 times for 31 yards. He had 37 yards passing in the first half. The only drive he led past midfield ended on 4th down. I mean, this is atrocious. Cortland Sutton, 4 catches for 46 yards, touchdown. It's good to get him rolling. You got to get that big guy going. But Jerry Jeudy caught 3 passes for 14 yards. He's averaging 44.4 yards per game, and he's yet to catch a TD pass. Javonte Williams returned from injury to run 10 times for 52 yards. They were 1 for 1 in the red zone. If they could only get more opportunities there, I think we said the same thing about the Patriots, but they're 11th in the league converting red zone opportunities, 57.89% of the time. The defense bent but didn't break against the Chiefs. 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. They held the Chiefs to 4 of 13 on 3rd down, held them to 1-5 in the red zone. Justin Simmons had a big pick, and Greg Dulcich is back. The hamstring injury, so he'd just come off IR from the hamstring injury. He re-injured it. The Broncos come in 30th in total DVOA. They're 32nd in NFL in points allowed. So last in points allowed per game. They're last in yards allowed per game. They have yet to cover a game this year, and yet I want to back them here. What is wrong with me? Take it away, Mikey. Packers, Broncos.
I'm with you. I want to back them. First of all, I've said it. I know our friend, he's not, I'm sure he's in Red October mode right now. So I will comfortably say, I think Jordan Love's bust. I don't think he's the guy. I think we'll see he sat behind this Aaron Rodgers on the bench for a couple of years. Now, is bust too strong a word? Maybe. Will I take it back? No. The fact is that I just don't think he's got the goods. I don't think he's got the mechanics. He might as well have been playing at North Dakota State, FCS type of program here. And we'll see what that does in terms of how his development's out there, but he should be developed by now, and he shouldn't be looking as inconsistent as he does. Flip side of the ball, Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson's got to be a jerk. I think that, he's got birthday parties that nobody shows up to. His wife there, Sierra, is throwing millions of dollars at things to get these nightclubs ready and have all kinds of surprises, and none of his teammates show up. I mean, it's, it just tells me that things aren't in the good spot for Denver either. Now, let's get more tangible than what my gut tells me about some of these guys here. Big deal that Aaron Jones comes back. You talked about A.J. Dillon. I think A.J. Dillon had like one good season. Maybe fact check me on that. But I know from a fantasy perspective, I had him in 1 year, and it was like a productive year because he was the vulture in the red zone that was able to scoop and gobble up those touchdowns. But, the Packers, they're throwing way too much with this kid here, Jordan Love. They're 7.1 yards on attempt in early down situations going back to last year. That ties for 10th best in the NFL. The Broncos allowing guys to drop back. They're 4th worst when it comes to giving up those opportunities. So, you've got a team that passes a lot in the Packers. Yeah, they're vulnerable on the Denver side of things to that pass, but by bringing Aaron Jones back in, you're bringing the one of your 1-2 combination in there to come out there and relieve some of that pressure from a guy like Jordan Love that can get himself into some mistakes out there. And we've seen that. They throw the ball 56% of the time in the season altogether. That's tied for 8th highest in the NFL. That's not a third you want to be in because you're behind the ball. You're showing that you can't establish that run in that ground and pound situation, and you're just tossing the ball over the yard, hoping to get it done. So where I think there's a strength for the Packers, if they can get that ground game established, as the Broncos allow 8.2 yards per drop back this season, which is worst in the NFL. They're letting teams come out there and pass all over them. And we've kind of seen that if you look at how their overall performance is done. Yeah, there's injury. There's just not any kind of chemistry or mojo going on that Denver side of the house. I guess part of me is kind of in that, are they due type of philosophy? I mean, you look at their last 2 losses, they lost to the Jets 31-21. After the Jets beat the Eagles and the Jets beat the Bills in week 1, I'm kind of willing to grade that as less of an umpteen factor than it looked like. And then the Kansas City side of things, Kansas City's only losses to Detroit, who we talked about earlier today, was an incredibly balanced team. So am I willing to give them a break on that? Then they beat Chicago 31-28. That was right around when Justin Fields was coming into his own and throwing the ball all over the yard. That was a big comeback victory in the 4th quarter for those guys to win that game. Flip side of things, we got the Packers coming here off of Las Vegas. I talked about this earlier. There are 2 teams this week because of the bye factor that come into this thing. But after a team plays the Las Vegas Raiders, they're 7-14 straight up and against the spread. They're 3-18 to the under, going under by 5 points. Home dogs, when the line is less than 4 points, totals less than or equal to 45, are 17-59 to the under by 40 points. I do have some numbers here when it's a home dog with a decent offensive performance the previous game. They're 25-8 against the spread, 18-15 straight up. Could the Broncos come out here and win this game outright? Wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, I'm not big and high on this Jordan Love factor here, but I think that ground game and establishing that enough for me to be concerned. The spot that I am going to take advantage of here, though, is that under. We're off that bye week where I talked to you guys about the under earlier in a couple of spots today. We got that post-Raiders game factor with the under, and we've got this home dog with some of these line parameters that make sense for the under. So I am going to take this under 45, and I hope that they can get that damn ground game going for Green Bay Packers to chew some of that clock up and force Russell Wilson to make some mistakes. And then watch Russell Wilson do some 50-yard combinations down the field and then turn it over in the red zone because they stink there. So under 45 at -110 for me in this Denver game.
We can get you that at -108 at Heritage. So we'll give you that under 45 -108. Well, I'm not going to bet this tonight. I have this, I don't know, it's just a sickness, man. I want to back the Broncos. I don't trust the Packers. Yes, they're going to look better with Aaron Jones. Maybe I should just let this go. Just let this go. I'll have to keep telling myself that, hourly for the next 4 days. But I like the Broncos here. But I think there's some truth to what Sky Dragon's saying. Love these struggling defenses that get rid of expensive vets. Sends a message to the rest of the team that no one's job is safe. And you saw that with J.C. Jackson with the Chargers. Chargers look great. With Gregory.
I don't know that we can say that they actually got rid of Devontae Adams, though. He didn't want to play there. Let's be honest. He wanted the hell out of Dodge, right? Is that who we're talking about?
No, I'm talking about Randy Gregory.
Oh, okay.
Gregory getting shipped off to, just being dropped and the Niners picking up. He looked good for the Niners, but still, the Broncos defense looked better. Look, they're terrible. But they're better than their numbers say they are, I believe. And if that's the case, then we should probably take them at home. But I don't know if I can do it. Let's move on. Let's move on to 4:25 p.m. Eastern. Los Angeles Chargers 2-3, 1-1 on the road. The Kansas City Chiefs 5-1, 2-1 at home. We're at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. 72 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 8 miles per hour. Beautiful weather for this one on Sunday afternoon. Let's get into the line history here. We have this spread. Has moved to 5.5. Bet Chris, and bookmaker Sharp Books, they've moved it to 5. This opened up at 5.5. The numbers in Troy's database for spots that go through the number 6 to 5.5 are wild for the dog, but this maybe hasn't officially really done that. At least at Pinnacle, it hasn't done that. But still, in this matchup, I have a vividness bias of the Chargers covering these spots, especially in Kansas City. And it makes me want to back them. The total here is at 48. It's juiced to the over. It has dropped from 49 over at Pinnacle. And then when we get over to the cash flow here, you have on the total 66% of the tickets and 88% of the cash on. Sorry, I did that wrong. 66% of the tickets, 88% of the cash on the under. And from a point spread situation here. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button here. From that, we have 76% of the tickets and 80% of the cash on, a road dog. That's not a situation that I want.
Yeah.
But I do like them here. The Chargers come in on a short week after losing 2017 at home on Monday night to the Cowboys. I think that's the worst game I've ever seen Justin Herbert play. And you have to imagine that the fractured finger on the non-throwing hand is part of it. He missed some wide open throw. That's just by far the worst I've ever seen him play. He was 22 of 37 for 227 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Keenan Allen caught 7 passes for 85 yards and a touchdown. Joshua Palmer caught 4 for 60. Austin Eckler did not look good in his return from injury. I mean, I think that can be expected, but he did, 14 carries for 27 yards, caught 4 for 35. The Chargers were just 2 of 4 in the red zone. They're 4th in the league, converting 65% of those opportunities. The defense played very well, kept the Bolts in it. The 5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits. They were expecting to get starting safety Aloy Gilman back after the bye, but he was inactive still. This heel injury is lingering. So Raheem Lane got the start in place of Gilman, and he suffered a knee injury. So they're down to Dean Marlowe playing beside Derwin James. I don't think there's much of a difference, or at least they don't believe there's that much of a difference between Raheem Lane and Dean Marlowe. You have Asante Samuel, Michael Davis, and Jasir Taylor as starting quarterbacks. And Samuel and Davis have looked really bad this year, but they looked much better yesterday. We've talked about how bad they've been graded out so far this year, but they looked much better yesterday. The Chargers have covered the spread in each of their last 5 games as an underdog following a loss. This all appeals to me here. The Chiefs come in off extra rest after an underwhelming 19-8 win over the Broncos at home on Thursday night. And the reason why I haven't already bet this is because of the underwhelming victory, because the Chiefs offense didn't look good. Now they have a team that they want to beat badly coming to town. Mahomes is 30 of 40 for 306 yards, a touchdown and a pick. He also ran 6 for 31. Kelsey caught 9 for 124, and Rashee Rice caught 4 for 72. Pacheco ran 16 times for 62 and caught 6 for 36. So their playmakers are doing the job, but they were 4 for 13 on third down. They were 1 of 5 in the red zone. Their red zone offense has not been good this year. 17th in the league. 54.17% of their red zone drives have been converted into touchdowns. But the Chiefs defense completely shut down the Broncos. The defense looks so strong. Held the Broncos to 197 total yards. Held Wilson to just 37 passing yards in the first half. They finished with 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hits. Reed and Bolton each had interceptions. And Chris Jones is just rolling, man. They had a sack in his 8th straight regular season game. So now that I say it all out loud, I don't know why we wouldn't bet the under. But I think that we get a better showing from both offenses than we saw last week. And I guess I didn't want the bias from what I just saw to affect me and just make me think, the under is a bet. But, I love betting unders when these two teams played and it would be 53.5. And we talked all about how good their offense is. But this is a big difference. We're talking about 5 points difference from what I'm used to when these two teams play. Take it away for us here, Mikey. This is a fun one. Chargers, Chiefs at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I feel like, obviously we were just talking about these Chargers last night. I'll tell you what, boatload of money by taking Dak Prescott. He owed me after that week prior, so I was happy to get that cash. But, as far as this game's concerned, surprisingly enough, as I dug into some of these numbers, the Chargers have been one score or less, tied or leading in every fourth quarter against Kansas City in the past 2 seasons. So surprised to see those numbers. Excuse me. As I broke it down, I was looking at it saying they're playing this team competitively. And in the Brandon Staley era, when you get totals that are at 47.5 or higher, they're going under at an alarming rate. So it's kind of like you were talking about there with these 53s to see some of these numbers pop off. And it's a divisional game. So divisional games, we know they like to play them tight. Number that jumps off the page for me and kind of supports the Chargers. I'll take a step back and say I'm a little disappointed that this number opened up where it did. I was hoping for more of that 6.5 or 7. So to see 5s and I see some 5.5s out there now kind of concerns me a little bit. But, I was hoping that, hey, they lose to the Dallas Cowboys. They come out here and they get the job done. Where on the flip side of things, if they beat the Cowboys convincingly, we would probably be sitting at a 2.5 or a 3, which wouldn't have been good. So I think there's some value in this line just based off of the early reaction from last night. But teams that are back-to-back, home games against divisional opponents, when they've got a line that's between -3 and -8, right? So that's this parameter specifically. This number is kind of sitting right in the middle, and it shouldn't matter how much movement we get barring any major injuries. Goes all the way back to the NFL season 2005. They're 4-14 against the spread. They're 6-12 straight up in those spots as well. So the numbers for me support, a situation where the Chargers could actually come out here and shock this Kansas City team. But where I'm a little apprehensive is that magic elixir that is Taylor Swift and what's been going on with her and Kelsey out there. They've been playing better. They've been covering more games at home now than they should have. And, the first half of the season, we know they're not playing as a cover team at home. But I like this Chargers team. I like this spot specifically with these back-to-back divisional home games, knowing how damn close they've been. Justin Herbert's one of the better quarterbacks in the first half of the NFL all career long. And then last night I talked about that second half. They haven't covered a second half all season. Last night they pushed. They're actually 0-3-2 now in the second half. So I guess I'm kind of setting the table to say I like that Chargers in the first half at +3.5. In fact, I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to take the first half +3.5. And then I'm going to look to live bet the Chiefs. Maybe the Chargers are winning outright in that first half. I don't know. Maybe crazier things have happened. Maybe they're up a field goal or 2 points and some wonkiness that takes place. And then I'm going to live bet the shit out of the Kansas City Chiefs to come back and slap them Chargers right in the mouth. So 3.5 is the number that I got for that first half.
3.5. Yeah. Market wide right now available. No extra vig. So, that's a very, very interesting look. I just want to hear Justin say it has nothing to do with my hand. I just played badly. I just want to hear it. I want to hear him say it, and look into the camera, and fucking say it to me. It was
I'd be pissed if they come back in the second half and they come back and backdoor cover and I lose that my philosophy goes out the window. Yeah, I will. And that wouldn't be the first time that's happened. I don't play a lot of first halves, but you're right. I mean, is he, you would think if you're the leader of these men and there's these high expectations for your team to go out there and perform, that you would be a man and take some responsibility and be like, you know what, that loss is on me. Takes the pressure off of everybody else. It keeps them kind of head on a swivel, head above water. They're treading water. They're able to come back into this next game and focus. Whereas, by just leaving it out there, everyone's going to be questioning what the hell happened. And is it Herbert that's a bag? And I think he is a bag.
Big O says that he believes the Chiefs are a top 5 defense. If the Chiefs are a top 5 defense in the NFL, then, they should win another Super Bowl. Even if their offense is not what we've seen it in the last couple of years. They haven't had an elite defense, which is what we're seeing. I mean, watching Snead on Jefferson was just like, it's like, oh my God. He can shut down Jefferson like this. It was crazy. Nunya looking at Chargers money line. DC Capper on the under. A loyalty Chisel says it's amazing how many one possession games the Chargers have lost in the last 10 years. I mean, it's just pointing your fingers at these ass clown coaches that they keep having and hiring. All right, Chargers first half plus 3.5 for Mike. I expect to end up on the Chargers. I've just got to get over what I saw last night. I just got to get over it. I expect to be on them at this, and then we'll know. I mean, is it? God, it's like is it worth risking money to find out if Herbert really is off right now? My guy Burgundy Bets in the house. What up?
Also keep in mind the Eckler factor too, though, right? Yesterday was the first game that Eckler was back. Star player comes back. You got to think about fading that team, and now they've got Eckler back and ready with hopefully establishing more of a game plan. He already knows how to play Kansas City Chiefs, so it's not a matter of him having to learn any particular script. He just needs to go out there and be healthy and have confidence that he can go out there and run the ball. And if they run the ball, it takes that pressure off of Herbert and that giant meathead of his to go out there and not throw so many interceptions.
Yeah, and Mark Schumacher says the answer, no, it's not worth it. There's my guy Nate Cerna in the house. Mikey M's on the Chargers first half plus 3.5. I expect to be on them. What if you had is the total so much lower than what we're used to? Would keep you off the under, or do you still find the under appealing? Because I still do.
I like the under. Just a Brandon Staley factor. He's ready to go. He's geared up for totals that are over 47.5. So for whatever reason, and I think this kind of supports that Eckler's back in the fold philosophy that they're able to keep that ball on the ground and move the clock. So if I had a free play, gun to my head, and I had the free play, I guess I would consider that under. I wouldn't be mad at anybody that wanted to tease it with the under. You're going to buy that thing up to 54 points and take a plus 11 or 11.5 on the Chargers. That's another good look for the thing here as well. But, I like the first half because in a game like this where I still think that full game outcome is variable, I got the opportunity to live bet myself and at least come back to 0, or maybe I move up 2 units on it. So we'll see.
I like it. Chargers, Chiefs, we move on to the Sunday nighter, and we deserve this as football fans. After all the trash we've seen in these spotlight games, we deserve this. Miami Dolphins 5-1, 2-1 on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles 5-1, 2-0 at home. We're at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 53 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 11 miles per hour. So Troy sent me the message. He is on the Eagles. Sammy Calmer says Eagles might be his biggest bet of the season so far. And I'm thinking of taking them to win the division at minus 150. I'm shocked at that number. And I just wanted to hear what you guys thought about that here. Eagles minus 150. That almost seems like a bet where I should call in and ask to go over 500, even though I don't like doing that. I think 500 is a pretty fair limit for me in my bankroll, but it just feels like a spot that I would like to slam. Troy says this. He says, worst strength of schedule by far. A pissed off Eagles team will dominate the line of scrimmage and have their way with this Dolphins defense. Ultimately, I trust the Eagles defense to get more stops, enough to lay one possession. Let's take a look at the line history here for this one. I want the Eagles here. I just wanted to talk everything out. I feel much more comfortable when I do that, and then I put in my action after the show. Eagles are sitting right now at -1 at -125. It's not a real -1. They opened up at -2.5, and there was a big 1.5 move towards the Dolphins. So you could have got the Eagles -1 at -110 with no vig. It got to -110 at 3:24 p.m. yesterday. 18 minutes later, it moved 6 cents. And then it didn't move again for about 8 hours almost. Then it moved to -118, moved to -122. Now it's at -125. So basically, it's a -2 that we're dealing with the Eagles. And we get to the total here. We are sitting at 52. It opened up at 52.5 at Pinnacle. It's dropped a half point. We see 51.5s around here. Ian Shaber already grabbed the under 53.5. Spenny Penny Bombs says Eagles money line. And Sky Dragon says, well, you know what I think. Fly, Eagles, fly. Let's get to the cash flow here on this one. And here we go. Sorry, let me get over to the Eagles. And we have 54% of the tickets and 89% of the cash on the Philadelphia Eagles. So why then was there that move from 2.5 to 1? You know, it gives me pause and just wanting to talk it out, not move on it before I got here. 83% of the tickets, 86% of cash on the under. Dolphins coming off a 42-21 win at home over the Panthers. They fell behind 14-0. And, you know, we got the -2.5, which was just nuts live. They were ahead at halftime. You know, this offense is electric. Tagovailoa, 21-31 for 262 yards, 3 touchdowns, leads the NFL with 1,876 yards passing this season. Tyreek Hill caught 6 passes for 163 yards and a touchdown. He now has a league-leading 814 yards receiving in 6 games. It sucks that Devon Achane is on the IR, but Raheem Mostert made the most of the opportunity. Ran 17 times for 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, caught 3 passes for 17 yards and a touchdown. They were 7-13 on third down. They were a perfect 5 for 5 in the red zone. They are first in the league, converting 80.77% of red zone opportunities. But the Panthers put up 296 total yards against them. You know, the Panthers went 2-2 in the red zone. The Fish are 26th in the league in allowing touchdowns in the red zone, 66.67% of the time. They also lost Xavier Howard to a groin injury. McDaniel said that Howard is day to day, says we're going to see how X calms down and responds to treatment. That to me sounds like he won't go. Now, if Howard can't go, then they have to face A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith without Jalen Ramsey or Xavier Howard. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So you're going to have Eli Apple. Perry Nickerson? Well, what are you going to do? Connor Williams missed his second game in 3 weeks with a groin injury. He's not going to practice on Wednesday. And I said this off the hop. They didn't give him the contract extension. These guys who don't get extended, they're not going to risk injury for you.
Right.
Liam Eichenberg would begin as the starter then. So at center. So he showed improvement in his second start at center. But, Connor Williams is a Pro Bowler. So if there's no Connor Williams, there's no Xavier Howard. We know there's not going to be Jalen Ramsey. So if that's the case, then this moves to 3, I think, or at least 2.5 for sure. Back to 2.5 though, which is strange. Eagles coming off a 2014 loss at the Jets. They outgained the Jets 348 to 244 in the loss. Jalen Hurts was 28 to 45 for 280 yards, touchdown, 3 picks. He also ran 8 times for 47 yards and a touchdown. He threw 3 interceptions against the Jets defense that was missing Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, their starting cornerbacks. It's just shocking. But that's where you want to back a team. You want to back a great team after getting slapped in the face. A.J. Brown caught 7 passes for 131 yards. DeAndre Swift struggled on the ground. 10 carries for 18 yards. Got to do better. He did catch 8 passes for 40 yards. He did also lose a fumble. They were 2 for 3 in the red zone. They're currently 23rd in the league. They only are scoring touchdowns on 45.45% of their drives, red zone drives. That's not enough. That's not good enough. That should improve. Their defense was very strong. 5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, held the Jets to 2 of 11 on third down, held the Jets to 1 of 4 in the red zone. The defense has not been good in that category. The Eagles defense allows touchdowns on 65% of opponents' red zone drives. The red zone has been a bad place for the Eagles through the beginning of the year, and you can't expect that to continue. They're just too good of a football team. Now, probably in the chat, I've got it covered right now just so I can focus on this, but Lane Johnson left in the first quarter with an ankle injury and didn't return. It's a lateral ankle sprain, and he wants to play on Sunday. He wants to be out there on Sunday. Their rookie quarterback Eli Ricks left with a knee injury in the third quarter, and Reed Blankenship with the ribs. Alan Lazard with the unnecessary roughness The X-ray on the ribs came back negative. So there are some injury issues on both sides of the ball for these squads. Take it away for us here, Mikey.
Did
our
you see
Sunday
that?
night live stream, Dolphins Eagles.
Did you see that cheap shit Lazard threw out there? I mean, it was like, and he caught him like where he caught him. You could see like as soon as he was going backwards in the air that he grabbed his shoulder. It's more than ribs. I mean, that's where your lungs are. It's hard to breathe when you got that type of injury going on out there. So that's a bigger injury than I think is factored into this thing. You know, Lane Johnson. So I see you guys talking about Lane Johnson. That dude played through a groin injury last year that required surgical repair at the end of the season. So his ability to be tough is not in question. It's going to be a big impact for him because he's been playing on the right tackle side, and they already got the right guard issue with Cam Jurgens being out of there. So what we saw when he left that game yesterday, 2 nights ago, is they started doing what looked like just kind of some sloppy runs with Jalen Hurts where they weren't really getting aggressive and they were just trying to move the ball forward because they really didn't have anything on the right side to stop the rush, and they knew that they were going to continue to come in and rush. So you saw him doing a lot of quarterback design sneaks up the left-hand side of the field because that right side is just super vulnerable. Doesn't just impact the ability to stop the blitz coming in and creating a pocket for the quarterback, but your whole running game is kind of geared around being able to develop that pocket and hold those guys back so that your running backs can use their vision to find those holes. So those are a couple of big factors. The secondary issues, you know, for the Eagles, they've already churned through 15 defensive backs this year. They had Bradbury with some injuries. Slay was out last game. Big play Slay is a big factor. They got some safety issues. I heard they were looking for some safeties before the trade deadline. They're trying to make some moves out there, you know, but it was interesting to me. And I broke this thing down. You guys know, who I'm certainly allegiant to here, but when I looked at year over year, the numbers were kind of amazing here. You know, 2022, this time of the season, Eagles had 147 points. This year they got 148. Last year, 2,367 total yards. This year, they have 2,370. Last year, they had 144 first downs. This year, 143. Last year, their third down effectiveness was 44%. This year, it's 51. And they've both been averaging 5.6 yards per play in both seasons. They are right on the mark, is why I indicate that, to have a season like they did last year. And this NFC, you know, is pretty wide open right now. But here's a big factor. So a lot of guys are talking about these Eagles and what happens. They just lost. They're coming back home. Guess what the Eagles do as a home favorite after a loss? 6-27 against the spread, 14-18 straight up. It's not a Philly night for me. You know, surprise, surprise. You guys know I love Philadelphia, and I'll talk about how I think they're going to win the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts is going to have his opportunity as the MVP candidate. But I can't get there right now, and it's Sunday night, so I'm not going to have an official play on this game yet. We'll see if cocktail consumption gets flying Sunday afternoon, and I feel like a little more aggressive if I have a great day going into this thing. But I'm a little nervous about these Miami Dolphins. Now, you know, the Bills were able to shut the Dolphins down, but Dolphins have looked pretty sharp. And what I like most about this game is kind of that inner kind of conversation or the inner rivalry that's taking place. These guys are all playing at Bama together, right? You look at the Eagles offense, they got all Bama guys. And who they just pick up? Another Bama guy in Julio. So, you know, I don't know that he's going to be a contributor. I don't know that I would have even made that move other than maybe they were trying to stop somebody like the Cowboys from picking him up. But so be it. You know, we'll take another weapon on the offense. There's already a lot of mouths to feed with Dallas Goedert. You know, you got Devonta Smith, you got A.J. Brown out there. But I think the boys are going to be motivated to come back and be aggressive. You know, the other factor for me, let's keep an eye on the wind. You know, right now they're showing about 10 to 12 miles an hour of wind. But when we get that tick up to over 15 miles an hour, it's 9-19 to the under. So we're expecting a high-scoring game, but it is a primetime match. And that under could very much be a factor as well. You're starting to see some tick down, right, from the 52 to 51.5. And there might even be some 51.5 out or 51s by tomorrow. Surprise, surprise. I wanted to come in and talk about Eagles and rah, rah, rah. And I've taken a lot of spots today, but I'm not overly confident, especially when I see that number when they're a home favorite after a loss. Now, you know, Jalen Hurts, he did the right thing here. We talked about Herbert the other day and what he needed to do. Jalen Hurts put it on himself. He said, it's on me. We got to be better. I got to be better. It starts with me, and we'll do a better job the next game. But just makes me nervous. I don't think it's a slam dunk Eagle spot like everybody's saying. You know, I certainly hope they get the job done. I don't know that I'll have Miami Dolphins money, but I don't know that I'm going to have Eagles money either.
Very interesting breakdown. I want the Eagles here, and I think they're going to be ready to go. And I think that the Panthers are a terrible football team. So the fact that the Panthers put up 300 yards and scored those 2 early touchdowns, I just let's go into Philadelphia and show what kind of men you are, because we saw when you went up to upstate New York, and
should be a great game. Should absolutely be a great game. We deserve another great primetime spot, and I think it's going to deliver. I'm just I'm nervous. Yeah, I say I'm nervous. I'm not bought in on a slam dunk Eagles outcome. Not yet, but you know what? Fuck, if I go 14-0 rolling into that Sunday night game, you bet your ass I'll be betting all over those Eagles.
Well, I'm betting Eagles tonight.
All right. I'm
going to be on the Eagles. The total I still want more time with here. I don't trust Miami's defense, so Miami's going to have to score. So, it's sort of like that Bills game that flew over. I'm a little hesitant, even though primetime owners have been cashing. All right, let's move on to the final spot on the board, the Monday nighter. Monday, October 23rd here. San Francisco 49ers at Minnesota Vikings, US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Take a look at the line history here for Niners Vikes. First off, the Niners are 7-point favorites, -7 at -104 right now at Pinnacle. They opened up at 7, and it went to 6.5. Went to 6.5 last night, and it lasted at 6.5 until 45 minutes ago. So 45 minutes ago, we had to switch back to 7. Let's get over to the total in this one. This is sitting at 44, -109 to the under. It opened at 44.5, so we have a half-point move towards the under. Ian Shaber, thank you for the kind words, my man. We love capping with you. Let's get into the cash flow here. 77% of the tickets, but just 58% cash on the under. It's moved a half point here. And from a spread perspective, we have 82% of the tickets and 96% of the cash on the San Francisco 49ers. That's pretty wild to me. And I'm a 49er guy. That's a big spread for the Niners on the road, with back-to-back road games and travel. They come in off their first loss of the season, 1917 at Cleveland, and snapped their 15-game regular season winning streak, and it was a costly loss. Deebo Samuel's shoulder, Trent Williams' ankle, and George Odom quad contusion. They're all day-to-day with their respective injuries. Christian McCaffrey, rib oblique. He was undergoing the MRI today. He's escaped a long-term injury, but not going to be available this week. Brock Purdy suffered his first career regular season loss. He didn't look good. 12 of 27 for 125 yards and a touchdown and interception. Brandon Ayuk caught 4 for 76, but the rest of the team caught 8 passes for 49 yards, only 215 total yards. They had scored 30 or more in all 5 of their games to start the year. They continued to look excellent in the red zone. They were 2 for 3 against the Browns, 4th in the league right now, 69.23% of their opportunities, but we'll see how that changes with CMC out. Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason are available. Elijah Mitchell is a strong running back, and he'll want to show out here. And this defense, though, gave up 160 yards on the ground to Ford and Kareem Hunt. It was shocking. They hold teams to an average of 64.2 rushing yards coming into that game. Then they got jacked for 160. They finished with 2 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. Warner and Lenoir had interceptions. Drake Greenlaw was inactive against the Browns, trying to get through this hamstring issue. He's expected to be ready to go. So they're going to be practicing on Thursday, and he's going to be ready to go. The 49ers have covered the spread in 11 of their last 12 games as favorites against NFC opponents. They've scored the first touchdown in every game this year. We talk about Shanny's scripted plays, how spectacular they are. First in the NFL in points allowed per game this season at 14.5. Vikings coming off an underwhelming 19-13 victory at Chicago. Their first game without the services of Justin Jefferson. The offense missed them 12 first downs, just 12, 2 of 13 on third down. They only had 220 total yards. Cousins was 21 of 31 for 181 and a touchdown. He lost a fumble. Hawkinson caught 6 for 50. Osborne 4 for 48, but Addison was covered, caught 3 passes for 20 yards and a touchdown. And Madison continued to struggle on the ground, 18 carries for 44 yards. The Vikings are 32nd in NFL in time of possession per game, and you're just not going to win in this league if you can't keep the opposing offense off the field. And they can't do that because Madison isn't very good running the ball. The defense looks strong throughout. 5 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, and one of those hits by Danielle Hunter knocked Justin Fields out of the game. Hunter played great. 7 tackles, 2 sacks. Jordan Hicks was all over the field. 10 tackles, fumble recovery for a TD, interception. Byron Murphy had an interception. They held the Bears to 1 for 2 in the red zone. They've been really bad there. They are 26th in the league. They allow touchdowns 66.67% of the time. And now Marcus Davenport has the ankle injury. So he has a left ankle injury, and then their guard, Ezra Cleveland, has the foot injury. O'Connell said that they'll get the full extent of it all here, but Ezra is going to be day-to-day, and they're really worried about Davenport's ankle. So I don't think Davenport's in the lineup. And the Vikings have not covered the spread in each of their last 8 games as underdogs against NFC opponents. So trend-wise, says the 49ers take care of business. I don't want them as 7-point favorites here, even in a bounce-back spot. Take it away for us here, Mikey, the Monday Nighter, 49ers Vikings.
Boy, I love those scripted play factors for, the 49ers. Nobody does it better. And, we saw where were they effective this past week. The only time they were effective was on that scripted play. On the flip side of things, the Minnesota Vikings, let's not forget Kirk Cousins on prime time Monday Night Football. 2-10 straight up. He's not a winner. He's not a winner on prime time. Prime time home teams that have the rest advantage, 16-34 straight up. They are 24-25. So that number is kind of creative there with that 7 or so that you're seeing out there. 12-37 to the under. Do we see another under situation in prime time? If you're going to look to that teaser on the under, it moves to 8-42 to the under. If you take that 6 points, factor it in. Home dogs on a Monday when their opponents coming off a loss are 2-20 straight up, 4-18 against the spread, losing the spread by almost 10 points in that game. Numbers that support certainly a strong look to the San Francisco 49ers. Also, when the opponent was away, they passed over 36 times, and they're away again the next week, 28-17 straight up and against the spread, 8-37 to the under. It's just this primetime under factor to me that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he's a loser. There's no question about it. He's got an established track record of being a loser. San Francisco, they're winners. They had a tough game last week. I still can't. If you told me and I didn't know the outcome that they lost to the backup quarterback in the Cleveland Browns, I wouldn't believe you. I'd say you're full of it. But, those are the breaks and those are the numbers that they worked out to. But I do have that 3-leg teaser. So I'm going to give it to you guys now. The first leg of it, let me just pull it up and make sure I got the right numbers here. The first leg of it is the bear with me for 1 second. It's going to be a 3-legger with the Bills in the first leg. And I've got the Bills at Sorry, I shut this window down because I had too many rolling here. First leg is those Buffalo Bills. I got the Bills at -2.5. The second leg of the teaser is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I got that at -0.5. And the third leg of the teaser, let me make sure I pull it up and give you guys the right number here. Where the hell did it go? Sorry, Jimmy. I was reluctant to pull the trigger on this thing, but now that I'm looking at this game and I'm starting to sit around and think about how it breaks down, the third leg for me was, putting everybody in suspense right now. I'm killing it with the suspense.
While you are looking that up, I will tell you that the more I talk about the spot, the more I'm nervous about the under. It's hard. I've seen what you can do to this front group for the Vikings if Davenport doesn't take the pressure off of Danielle Hunter. And that makes me hesitant on the under, but I still kind of want the Vikings at 7 at this point. I feel like this is a spot to bet against the Niners here. But let's hear. The third leg is...
It's the Bills -3, it's the Seahawks -2, and it's the San Francisco 49ers -0.5. And I got it at +170.
Seahawks.
That's the 3-legger there. Encompasses the games. I know somebody had talked about that earlier, which made me kind of chuckle when they said the Bills and the Seahawks. Those numbers make a lot of sense. What does scare me when it comes to teasers is that 0.5 point where you just need to win. But I think in this case here, that just need to win against the Kirk Cousins. I've got all kinds of colorful names for Kirk Cousins that I won't mention on the stream, but he's certainly not a winner. And I'll just paraphrase it by saying that I'll summarize all those names into one thing. Kirk Cousins is not a winner. I'm going to line that thing up with that +170.
There's a lot to go over here with Greenlaw being back. I guess maybe the under is still alive. I feel like what we saw from the Vikings offense in their first game without Justin Jefferson is not really who they are. And look at Ron Crawford, spreadsheet play today's on Denver. Oh no, that's not what. Now I want to.
Now
I want to bet that so badly. I guess I need more time with this total, but I think the Vikings with 7 points is worth betting here. I really do. I don't feel like this is the bounce back spot for the Niners. I think they're going to be just fine. It's tough to play in Cleveland, but I feel like this is still a tough situation here.
Does Minnesota have a chance to win outright, or you think it's just a matter they're going to lose? It's just do they lose by less than a touchdown?
Yeah, I just think that they're in this football game.
Yeah.
Here. I mean, looking at it right now, 82% of the tickets, 96% of the cash sitting here on a 49ers bounce back spot. I guess I should move on the Vikings tonight. And then I gotta think longer on the under. The 3-leg teaser for Mikey: Bills -3, 49ers -0.5, and Seahawks -3. This is our Monday night
-2.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, did I say Seahawks -2? Thank you. Seahawks -2. All right, let's review all cash here. Sammy Calmer says San Francisco will have Cincinnati a week after. Might be a look ahead. I don't think San Francisco's concerned about anybody else. Really, I don't. Maybe the Eagles, but I don't think they're concerned about the Bengals. I don't think anyone's concerned about the Bengals right now with the way they're playing. Although, obviously, we are very interested in them, Sammy. Although that was the other spot. So Sammy moved on the Bengals last week at +350 to win the division, and I was like, oh, if they beat the Seahawks, what's the number going to move to? I thought it'd be less, but it moved to +375. Because the Browns won and the Ravens won. And then today it's at +400. So, Bengals off the bye. We can talk all about that here shortly. Let's review all action here on tonight's show. We have our guy Mike M replacing Troy Torrence, who I'm sure right now is holding his newborn son. I haven't got the message yet, but I imagine that's what's happening. Or it's, 12 hours of labor and it's just screaming and yelling. Who knows? Who knows? For the Thursday nighter, Mikey M's on the first half under and the Saints team total under. I want the under and I want the Saints. I'm surprised I'm saying that out loud, but I do.
I still haven't written as a lean. I want him. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it. So TBD.
Raiders, Bears, Mikey's on Jacobs rush attempts, not yet, but when it comes out, over. And then the Raiders -3. I do have interest in the Raiders -3, but I'm just going to leave it as interest right now. Then Troy is on the Browns -2 and the Colts team total under. And I'm now off of that spot, completely off of that game. And this is was going to be part of your teaser. Yeah. Oh, your 8.5 teaser. Yes, I'll go into that. Sorry. Okay. Then Mikey's on the Bills -8, -113. I'm betting that tonight.
Yeah.
Then Mikey's on the Commanders money line -125. That makes me very uncomfortable, just market wise here. Then I'm going to be on the Bucks and the under. Mike M's on the Bucks first half -1.5. Sky Dragon says Cincinnati's becoming New England. Every year they play terrible in September. Then you look up in November and they're like 8-3. Oh, I'm going to want to be involved in the Bengals at some point, but I don't know if I need to push it now. Looking at that schedule, can wait maybe a little bit longer. Mikey's on the Lions +3. And the money line. The only spot I'm looking at is the Ravens in this one, but I'm not moving on them tonight. Then I'm going to be on the Steelers and the under, betting that tonight. And the teaser that we talked about, Colts +8.5 and the under 50 in Pittsburgh Rams for Mikey. Then Cardinals, Seahawks, we are off, but Seahawks will be my survivor. Then I want the Broncos, and I was probably going to just leave it alone, but now seeing the spreadsheet play today on the Broncos certainly has me finding it appealing. Mike's on the under 45 in Packers Broncos. Then the Chargers +5.5 and the under. I have the question mark on the under. So I move on the Chargers now +5.5, maybe. Mike's on the Chargers first half +3.5. Then I'm moving on the Eagles tonight. Troy's on the Eagles, but Mike has cold feet. Then the under interests me in San Francisco, Minnesota, but goddamn, I just hate watching this front group of Minnesota when Daniil is the only person you're worried about. I mean, the 49ers offensive line is just too good. But the Vikings +7. I think I should move on very soon. That tonight. I think I should get that in. That is our show for this evening. Mike, Truth Teller, Rants, Sky Dragon, Harold Williams, Sammy Calmer, Mark Schumacher. I'm that he, Nunya. Thank you guys. Terry Walker, Ronnie Crawford, Slatsy. Thank you guys so much for your support of the show. We have nothing without you. Equinimus, Jared T.G., Nate Cerna, Ian Shaber, Susie Easton, Markel. Thank you guys so much for your support. Truly. Nasty Nate, Birdie. We've got nothing without you guys. So Dennis Garcia, all of you guys, thank you so much. Mike, thank you for filling in with Troy. Busy becoming a father, which is so exciting. So please, everybody out there, if you could send all the most positive energy to our guy Troy and his beautiful wife Sarah, just send all the positive energy we can and hope that birth goes nice and smooth and their son is here in the world with us, outside of the womb with us. Mikey, thank you. Any last words here for the Cappers here supporting the show?
Yeah, this was a ton of fun, man. I certainly like to get into it late, but I feel like I'm going to be more prepared now for Sunday. Appreciate everybody that dropped in here today and watch us throughout the rest of the week. Make sure you guys do us a favor. Hit that like, retweet. If you like what you hear, help us promote the word, man. These are our plays. We're putting our money where our mouth is. And if you haven't done so already, I see a ton of green in the chat. But hey, come out, subscribe, become members of Pub Sports Radio. $4.99 a month. Cost you nothing, makes a ton of difference for us. It gives us the opportunity to help compensate or pay for some of this programming that we have to pay for when it comes to YouTube and all the rest of the sports and the factors that are out there. So we appreciate everybody dropping in here. Jimmy, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity today. Lots of fun. I always love breaking the card down with you, man. I love our live shows that we do together, and I get fired up and want to bring my best because I know you do the same. And those are the kind of guys I want to run with. So, you got to cap with guys that are better than you so that you can elevate your game and push yourself to be better. And I feel like I'm fortunate to be in that position with you next to me, my guy. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're a good man. Those feelings are very mutual. Let's go out there and get that cash here. Big thank you to Jose Bouquet for making us look good with all the hard work behind the scenes. So thank you, Jose, for everything that you do for us, the backbone here at Pub Sports Radio. Now let's go out there and get that cash. Thank you, Bloodman. Thank you, everybody out here in the chat supporting us. Week 7, we're just a taint hair in the black. It's not enough. I want more. I want more this week. So let's go out there and get that cash.